Well, good afternoon and welcome to a beautiful Silverstone. Wait a minute, it's not. Did you put your barbecues away yesterday? Because the weather has changed somewhat here today. As you can see, we've even got standing water. It is the 2022 British Endurance Championship. My name is Chris Dawes, and I'm going to have the absolute delight of taking these guys round this 2-hour endurance race here on the full Silverstone GP circuit. We're over in the old pit lane, if you will, and that's where they'll be starting from, taking them into Copse Corner for the first corner. So it's they've been released from the pit lane. They're making their way round, and they'll put themselves onto the grid. They'll still only get the one green flag lap, we're being informed, which is interesting because it was raining earlier, but not quite as much as this, to be honest. Oh no! And we've even got somebody else that is already struggling. That's the 92 car, which is Sasha Kakad at the wheel of that Simpson Motorsport Mercedes. And unless I'm very much mistaken, that is our pole sitter car. It is indeed the 92. That shows you just how tricky it is out there. Sasha will be kicking himself about that one because he's delighted to be back out here in this car. Hugo's off sort of doing TCR Championship, I think it is. And he's just delighted to be able to jump in the car with him this weekend. But he's not so happy with the standing water, which... Look at the state, look at it. I mean, the amount coming off there is quite incredible. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm delighted to say I'm going to introduce the team as we go. David Smith is down in the pit lane, and we'll grab interviews as and when appropriate. But I'm delighted to say I'm joined in the commentary box here during the course of this race from someone who knows this from a driver's perspective. He's at the moment an ex Caterham racer, but I still reckon he'll be back out there at some point as well. But it is Chris Cheesy Hutchison. Cheesy, welcome to the commentary box, and some sights that probably make you glad you're in here rather than out there.
Yeah, this looks like similar conditions to I had last year. Good afternoon, everybody. Boats might be more appropriate right now rather than race cars, but conditions that I'm sure that a number of the drivers will be fairly used to. I mean, Silverstone, what a venue to be at. They've just come off 30 degrees of yeah. Full-on tropical conditions yesterday, and what have they woken up to today? Well, it was drizzle this morning, wasn't it? Inclement conditions, but now it's properly grotty.
On that note, actually, let's flip this on its head. Is that we're talking about the standing water out there being quite extreme, but this morning was a big problem for them. And now I'm speaking to you as a racing driver. Everybody tells me that worse is neither one thing or the other. Either be dry or be chucking it down, don't be in the middle, which is what it was this morning. Yeah,
the greasy conditions, that means that you can gain momentum around some corners, which then you've got to deal with that extra speed, which is why the greasy conditions cause you a lot of problems. But the standing water gets to a point where even the Goodyear wet tyres here are not going to be able to cope with the sheer amount of water on track, and you can see how slow the drivers are all making their way around. You can see how much water is there under, and that's what causes the aquaplaning. That pressure of the water and the tyres unable to deal with it just mean that they will lose track, and in fact they will actually lose contact with the surface of the. You can see the rivers coming across the circuit as they head off down the Wellington Straight.
Well, and of course how quickly the tyre tracks actually disappear again afterwards. I mean, this is, and look how poor the vision that they're going to have. The view is not going to be great unless you are that lead car.
Yeah, the opening laps are going to be interesting indeed, but we've got a 2-hour endurance race today. They don't want to do anything stupid or take any big risks on that opening lap, as much as they might be tempted to do, and I'm sure we'll see one of the two of the drivers pushing the envelope, but no, with the conditions that we've got now, you saw even on that formation lap, we did see that spin from the 92 here, so yeah, that's going to be a bit of a confidence sapper, isn't it?
It really is. I tell you what, one of the things that's disappointing is that we're hearing, there is a rumour that one of the cars that was the 21 car, the Venture Innovations, Matty George was out in that Mercedes AMG GT4. The belief is that he's posted the fastest ever GT4 lap around the GP circuit. We're yet to have that officially ratified, but that's incredible, and then a shame we're not going to see it this afternoon.
Yeah, conditions and the Goodyear tyres obviously absolutely on it to get that kind of accolade. But yeah, no, you're not going to see those times. Certainly very different tyres we strapped onto these right now, and they all taken up their place. I believe it's a rolling start for these guys. So actually, in some ways, that'll be good in that they'll all have some momentum already. But no doubt the spray will be a pretty impressive sight to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to when my dad and I used to come here and watch the British Grand Prix year after year. I think we did something like 10 years in a row. And when they go down the Hanger Straight, the rooster tails coming off of the back of the cars down that stretch is incredible in Formula One cars. These are going to be impressive as well.
Yeah, we've got GT3 machinery on the grid. They have got a substantial amount of downforce. They are going to be chucking up significant volumes of water into the air. And as you know already, as a spectator, if those rooster tails hit you, it's like buckets of water landing on your head. And I've spent many a Grand Prix absolutely soaked to the bone, but you wouldn't have it any other way. It's spectacular.
Now, interestingly, I think that we just saw earlier that there was a few cars at the end of the pit lane. We've had notification from race control that the pit lane is now closed. So I got the impression we may have a couple of cars that are going to have to start from the pit lane. In these conditions, though, that's possibly not a disadvantage.
Not a disadvantage. It gives you extra time as well to work on the car. So if they were scrabbling to get setup changes done ahead of these conditions, where, say, this morning it was very greasy, but it was certainly not wet like we're seeing now. So if they were doing setup changes, then that gives them extra time. And it's in an endurance race, it's not so critical. If you are at the back at the beginning of this race, it doesn't mean you're going to still be there by the time the clock or the flag comes down.
Yeah, and there we saw just on the left of your screen there, you'll have seen it looks like there is a couple of, I think they would both look like TCR cars, I think, out of the corner of my eye. By the way, the car that's poking out sort of at a weird jaunty angle there, the BMW Z4, we need to keep an eye on that one. The 55 ING Sport car, three-car team, Ian Lawson, Kevin Clark and Ryan Lindsay in that one, but they are driving around a gearbox problem yesterday, and I think they only managed 2 laps in practice yesterday, and in qualifying today, 4th gear the whole time.
Yeah, that's not an ideal position to be in, and that's going to be worrying when we get to the pit stops as well. Can they get that car up and running again? I guess in conditions like this, maybe 4th gear is quite an ideal gear to have if you have any of them. But no, I'm sure that they'll be looking to see whether they can sort out those maladies.
What's the stress on the engine when they go down Hanger Straight, things like that? It's incredible. So we move off on the green flag lap behind the safety car. I am informed it's just going to be the one green flag lap here. Unless that has changed. Yeah, no, just had it confirmed from race control. It is indeed just the one green flag lap. Let's take you through the grid then. We said 92, the Simpson Motorsport car, the Mercedes, got the pole position with 160 Rob Boston racing alongside him. 19 Racelab and Stanbridge Motorsport 41, the pair of Lamborghinis side by side on row 2. Row 3, AF Corsa 23 Ferrari and Veluga Racing number 51. And make it a third Ferrari in that batch. It's the 144 R&R performance cars with ING Sport, the BMW Z4 number 55 alongside them. Where did I get to? Row 5 is 32 SG Racing 21 Venture Innovations and 6th row 60 EDF Motorsports and 50 T7 Motorsport. Row 7 sees the second of the Race Lab cars, which is not Lee Frost that's behind the wheel of that one. It's Ewan Hankey with that one. Sadly, we've got their teammates pulled out of this one. 7 Veluga Racing, the Porsche alongside them. 87 Sheared Autosports Audi and the 44 car of CTR Alpha Tune in the Seat TCR car. On to the 9th row, 33 Infinity Financial Racing by Team Brit and 66 Dragon Sport by Amigo Motorsport. Then it's the full Team Brit, team number 68 and 22 EDF Motorsports on the 10th row. Row 11, 36 the Team Hard Janetta and Motus One number 94. And row 12 is 14 RVR U-Car Racing, the Porsche alongside them will be 35 Breakall Racing in the Mercedes, and then all alone on the 13th row the Jaguar 88 Nubam Racing. So a 25 car grid for this 2-hour endurance race. And it's going to be even more endurance race, isn't it, with these conditions, Cheesy?
Yeah, the sheer concentration needed around this for 2 hours, and with all the strategy going on as well. But yeah, these drivers are going to earning their keep today for sure. And and given that the conditions are changing, and looking at our commentary window now, we're not talking the heavy rain that we were seeing a little while back. We might well see that change of conditions, and then you've got the whole strategy call around tyres.
That's a good point. These things will shift absolute litres of the rainwater on the circuit if it is able to stop, and we're not sure what the sit's going to be here for this as they make their way on to the Wellington Straight. You can see they're starting to get into their corridors already, the 2x2 to lead them off on this start. there's a phrase that I annoy people by saying too much, but it kind of rings true even more with these conditions. You can't win the race on the first corner, but you sure as heck can lose it.
Yeah, and you can use it a lot of places, especially at the beginning with the number of cars we've got on this grid. 6 classes on, I believe, in the championship.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Whilst not all of those places matter, you have to get past them all, and in conditions like this, that's not always an easy thing to do.
It isn't. So our pole sitter with the sister Mercedes 160 Rob Boston racing alongside him. They're going to bring us to the line. They're in control of this restart. The safety car lights were out. It will have ducked into the pits already as we go through the last sequence of corners. Just look at that spray. It's incredible. But here we go towards the lights, and the race is about to get underway. The red 92 car alongside us, it just booms past our own commentary box. Such a loud noise. And away we go. So 2 hours of Brit car endurance racing underway. The pair of Mercedes sit side by side for as long as they dare. I thought for a second we were even going 3 wide further back. They're threatening 3 wide. I said 4. Make that 4 wide in these conditions. Cheesy, we said they were going to go steady on corner 1.
Yeah, it looks like they're looking like they're going to shove it out there wide already. But yeah, the grip is actually at the outside of the track normally around the Silverstone circuit, especially when we get to this kind of condition. So you'll see them. They will be avoiding those apexes. So it's not necessarily they have drifted wide, but everyone is filtering through Maggers and Beckett's here. Some going wide than others. You'll have drivers who do have more Silverstone track knowledge than others, and you'll see that they will start making progress early on.
Yeah, so our leader is already starting to stretch his legs, and it's Sasha Kakad at the wheel of that 92 car at the moment, whereas the 160 Rob Boston Racing, he says, trying to grab his paperwork. Wayne Mars is starting that one. The pro Tom Jackson will be taking that over. Still so much trying to sort out further back there. The Veluga Racing Porsche, the last time I saw them was over in Hockenheim. It's good to see them out here with a Porsche. That said, I was about to say about the spray looking bad. That looks like that's reduced from what we saw when they first went out in pits already.
I think it probably has, but equally, when you're sat in a car, you will not have a little bit wide there. It's like ice on those curbs out there, and once you get out there, they just drag you off further. He just managed to keep it inside of the gravel there, but he did manage to do that successfully, which is a good news at this early stage.
Well, interestingly, he was able to accelerate past the Lamborghini. That's James Little at the wheel of the number 7 Veluga Racing Porsche. And it actually works. You need to be careful because I don't think it's looked down on too fondly from the officials if they keep doing that.
No, in conditions like this, they do have a little bit more leeway to, especially in these early laps. But yeah, you don't want to continue to do that, otherwise the marshals will call you in. But that spray, yes, maybe it's reduced slightly, but you can see that, as a driver sat in these seats, especially if you're having any misting problems, which also comes up sometimes, you will literally see nothing. You are looking at the peripheral vision, trying to work out where you are on track. And 3 wide now coming out to Wellington. We've still got a left-hand corner to get through. Let's hold our breaths.
Interesting. Either that's a problem there for the 144 Ferrari, the R&L Performance. Chris Goddard, the car owner behind the wheel at the moment, handing that over to a certain Bradley Ellis for the second part of this race. And that just got passed by a number of TCR cars there. So I accept that they're going to tiptoe round, but I have a horrible feeling there's a slight issue during the course, on that section of the circuit. So are we going to see him come towards the pits? We'll keep an eye on that. But Christopher Compton Goddard, as many will recognise him, with his familiar livery, didn't look good. Now, we see the Rob Boston Mercedes under pressure from a car that I alerted you all to being aware of having gearbox problems. I'm not smelling gearbox problems right there.
No, it certainly looks like he's up to space and not struggling for traction. So, yeah, you can imagine he's going up through those gears quite nicely. Interesting with the class-based structure, we might see some different classes sort of benefit from these conditions compared to when it dries out. So it's something else to watch for as this race develops.
Well, we've got, so the BMW there, the BMW Z4, Kevin Clark that's starting that 55 ING Sport run car. That is sat there in 3rd place overall, buzzing around like an annoying hornet all over the back of the Rob Boston Racing 160 Mercedes. Wayne Mars at the wheel of that one. I love the fact that the team here for Britcar did a media piece that said Mars attacks. You just had to, didn't you? But he's the one being attacked this time. Yeah,
sometimes they write themselves, don't they? We're still seeing huge quantities of water being thrown up by these large, wet tyres that we've got going on the Goodyears out there. So there's still, plenty of spray. Even though the rain maybe has abated, especially at our end of the track, doesn't necessarily mean it's stopped at the other end. But we've got action going around Luffield. to try and. In fact, it's not Lafferty, that's the Village and the Loop and the earlier part of the lap, but still side by side. They've been side by side for a couple of corners now.
Yeah, and even though it's going to be the outside, you were making the comment that the outside line can have the more grip, so where normally you'd stay off the marbles. Wow, that's some elbows out racing from the 160 Rob Boston Racing Mercedes there. Determined not to let it completely be easy, and in fact, brilliant job. He's kept hold of that. I was convinced he'd lost that because I started saying that you normally avoid the marbles, the bits of rubber off of your tyres when it's dry, but when it's wet, that's what gives you that difference between the track surface so that you can shift the water.
The outside of that corner, normally that's a flat out little kink in most race cars in dry conditions. You don't really think about it too much, but side by side in the wet, it's actually quite a tight bend, and he ran out of space. He was on those curbs, and then you've got no choice but to come off the throttle.
Yeah, and it was a fair shout. The Rob Boston Racing, Wayne Mars was not prepared to give that one up whatsoever. We're getting things like alerts to say make sure rain lights are on.
Yeah, no, and that's needed, isn't it? And it's something for the drivers to think about. There's lots going on in the cockpit. You're trying to look forward a little bit wide out there. Is he going to go onto the grass? Well, they're both on the grass, so definitely pushing. It's an incredibly slippy part of the track. That is the first part. You get a little river coming across, and there is, I don't know whether it's a difference in tarmac, but it just really doesn't grip there at all.
Well, into the pits already, judging from TSL, has come the number 7 Veluga Racing Porsche. We saw that car moving its way through the order earlier. James Little was at the wheel of that one. It's not flashing down the order yet, so we'll need to wait and see, but it was in 6th place when it came into the pits. I don't know whether our pit reporter, David Smith, he's down there, and he may be able to let us know if there's any kind of issues. Problem is, if the car's a bit too far down, with these conditions in particular, we may sort of like lose him a little bit. But it does look like that car's gone in, and what's that? That's the end of the second lap. That is not good news.
No, it obviously depends on that. I'm not sure the pit lane or the pit rules, so it might be they're trying to get one done early.
No, a good perfect segue, thank you for that one, because I haven't said about that, is that there is a window basically 20 minutes in and before the last 20 minutes, and they have to make 2 mandatory pit stops. They can choose whether they're refueling, and you hear rumours like the Ferraris are going to refuel both times. If they're refueling, the drivers have to jump out. Most cars apart from one, the 55 BMW there's got 3. Oh, and the 35 Mercedes, that has spun round. Where was that car running when it had its moment? We'll have to keep an eye on that one. Yeah, the 35 was down in 21st. So that's the Breakall Racing, and it's kept itself going into the gravel. I'm not convinced he's going to be able to get out of that one.
It's a strange one. He looked like he had opportunity to get on the brakes and stop that car from rolling, but he continued to roll right into the gravel, and that is deep gravel today. Even the wet's not going to save him at the point. You can see the marshals ready to push him out.
Yellow flags waving there. Now, are we tempting to go towards a safety car, which will be bad news for Simpson Motorsport car because it's built up a 4.5 second lead. Second place has gone the way of the ING Sport BMW. He's been threatening that for a couple of laps, hasn't he, to be fair? So Rob Boston Racing 160 drops down a place, but that 30, what did we say it was, the 35 car, wasn't it? Grant Dalton at the wheel of that Breakall Racing Mercedes GT4 car. Hopefully they'll be able to get it out. Safety car is, as we suspected, out.
Yeah, when you've got marshals there, sort of they might allow that to be exposed for a short period, but trying to push that car, if it didn't move immediately, they want to move those marshals into a position of safety, and thereby safety car neutralises the race and gets that situation.
Yeah, and the problem is that if one car can lose it, so can others, and invariably, and again, you probably found this easy, is that they tend to be magnets for other cars.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just about the distraction. You see the yellow flag and then you almost get distracted by seeing the cars on the outside, but equally they've gone off for a reason, whether it's extra water, there's a river going across, whatever it happens to be, other cars are going to hit that same issue.
Very true. Well, that's on to the, I think it was the third lap that suddenly the 35 car has lost it. Your race leader is still at the moment the 92 Simpson Motorsport car, piloted by Sasha Kakad at the start of this. That's down at Stowe Corner. That car is in the kitty litter. So that's a fast approach down to it.
It's a fast corner, and it's also a significant runoff period. Yeah, we are seeing on our screens now a car is in the pits, as we called out.
Yeah, the number 7 car sadly got, well, I think he got up to 6th overall, bearing in mind that started 14th on the grid and got up to 7th, has now gone tumbling down to 24th. Very busy trying to see whether they can get that car back out again.
Yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of time in this race, but obviously any time spent in the pits is going to compromise your position, but it's still worth doing it with a 2-hour race. Other people will hit issues, no doubt, as we see just going off onto the Wellington Straight. There's not that much reduced speed going on at the moment. It's there for a safety car, but they're still waiting to get round to the start-finish straight to pick up that safety car.
Yeah, that's a key point, because that margin was still like 4.5 seconds between the 92 car in the lead and the white BMW Z4 of ING Sport, with, as I say, Kevin Clark at the wheel of the second place car at the moment. Rob Boston Racing Mercedes still in third position. Fourth is then actually the Class C leading car, number 51. That's Carl Cavers at the wheel of that Veluga Racing Ferrari. So they're actually sat in a Ferrari for that Veluga Racing, whilst their sister Porsche is in the pits having some kind of issues resolved. Other class leaders, in sixth place overall is the Class D leader, which is the Team Hard Ginetta, car number 36, and that's Ray Harris behind the wheel of that Ginetta G55 at the moment. What other class leaders we got? Trying to interpret that. The 19 car, which is Class B. I couldn't see that on the screen then. I need to get my eyes checked. Is the Blackhorn Lamborghini Super Trofeo, Claude Beauvais at the wheel of that 19 at the moment. Class F being led by number 14 RVR UK Racing. The Porsche number 14, that's Mark McAleer that's behind the wheel at the moment. That's Dad. So Mark and Jake McAleer driving that Porsche 997 together at the moment, and I've commentated on them numerous times in the Porsche Championship. Good to see they're still in a Porsche and tackling together father-son. We've got quite a few family teams out there, father, sons, brothers, etc., and I like that.
Yeah, you quite often see that in GT racing in particular, where you've got the opportunity for multiple drivers. I know a number of father-son pairings that are certainly in development as they go, but yeah, it's nice to see that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's. I can imagine it's more fun than driving against each other to some extent, to be honest with you. But some will probably disagree with me on that. And
they'll still be competitive towards lap times for sure. You know it.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, without question. Yeah, I mean, we've got the 88 car, which is the Thompson twins. They're called, even though they're not twins, they're brothers. But Callum and Adam Thompson, brothers in the Jaguar F-Type. We've already talked about Mark and Jake McAleer, father-son. We've also got, in car 33, the Aston Martin, a lovely sort of pale yellow Aston Martin, very different, stands out. Dale Abbott is the son, Mark Abbott is the dad. Jake and James Little in the number 7 Porsche that we know is in the pits at the moment, sadly, the Veluga Racing Porsche. Jake Little's the son, James Little the dad. 32, Mark and Peter Cunningham in the Porsche 997 SG Racing Run car. Mark is the son and Peter is the dad, and I think that's the family members in this. Apologies if you've gone on. I'm not bothered, but I was.
It's, I mean, British Endurance Champion. This is going for the title of British Endurance Champion, and nice to keep that in the family, isn't it? As we see the recovery truck there heading down to that Stowe corner, where clearly marshal power alone is not enough. They do need some of that vehicle power to drag that out. It's amazing how quickly the cars can get embedded, and these cars do run incredibly low, obviously, to the ground. I was watching them scrape along as they were just trying to get into the pit lane. It didn't even look like there was a sort of a gradient change in the pit lane, but they were still clipping their splitters, so incredibly low to the ground. And this gravel, even in the wet, where normally you've got more of a chance to get out, because he dropped in backwards, it kind of bedded him down straight away.
Yeah, we've got to hope that front splitter doesn't suddenly start scooping up that gravel. That's not what they're going to want.
The marshals will warn the driver to make sure he drives offline and brakes offline before rejoining that surface, because there's a lot of trouble that can be caused by stones in radiators and all sorts, especially in endurance racing. That becomes a big issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So the amazing marshals and recovery crews doing a fabulous job, and that's a great job there. He's able to actually assist them by the looks of it, and they're out of the gravel without any issue at the front there. And James Little, I believe, is with David Smith down in the pits.
You've just come in. Just tell us what happened, because it was a promising start.
The start was interesting. I couldn't see the lights at all. There's so much spray from these cars. But we had a great start. P1 in class and climbing through the other faster cars as well. Loving the wet conditions, actually. But a water pump belt has snapped, so that's game over for us, unfortunately.
That's such a shame. I mean, what were the conditions like? It looked pretty rough out there.
It's not too bad, apart from the spray and the lack of visibility. The grip is the grip. You're on wet tyres anyway, so you're driving with that. But it's the visibility. It's quite a problem.
Great, thanks very much. Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you, David. That's absolute heartbreak there. I mean, what did I say? I'm pretty sure I saw that they'd snuck up from 14th on the grid to 6th overall, which I'm pretty sure would have been a class lead for them. Yeah, I think it would have been. They would have been ahead of the Team Hard Ginetta. And that's put them out even at this early stage.
Yeah, it's such a disappointment. And so after all that testing yesterday, in fact today they've had warm-up and qualifying today, and just to build up immediately in the first sort of 10 minutes to have that problem. But saying there's no problem out there apart from the fact you can't see. Well, seeing's quite an important part of being a driver, and it is a bit disconcerting when you can't see. But I would say that where we were talking about the rain is slightly abated. You can see that even now with conditions out on track, we haven't got the rivers coming across that we were seeing on their green flag and formation laps. So whilst there's no way we can call it a drying line yet, we can certainly say it's headed that way at this point in time.
Yeah, of course the issue is with them circulating at this speed, they're not shifting it off the tarmac as quick as we were earlier, but I don't think they're too worried. And I thought for a second one car was going to zig while the other was zagging there, and that looked a bit worrying for a second, but thankfully we got away with it. That was I think that's the SG Racing car number 32, the yellow and black Cunningham's Porsche. So Simpson Motorsport will be looking to try and extend that lead back out again as quickly as they can. 4.5 seconds was the margin before the safety car come out. I mean, from a driver's perspective, how do you deal with that frustration?
You just have to get used to it. It's it's happened to a lot of drivers. You get that lead, you spend all that time building it. Especially in endurance racing, you kind of get used to it. But I'm more to the sprint racing, and it is very disappointing. But you must switch off. You must turn back into that race mode, and you can go from the psychology of I must be under control and hitting my marks every single time. Now you've got to get your elbows out. You've got other people around you. Their job is then to muck your line up, and so you really do need to be able to switch back into race mode quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. 41 Stanbridge Motorsports Lamborghini there was just in shot. They're going to hope to move on up through the order. They're currently sitting second within their class, so they'll be trying all they can as the safety car makes its way in towards the pits this time round. By the looks of it, I'm pretty sure I spotted that the lights were off. Yes, indeed. So exit stage right for that's very nice of me, even indicated to say he was turning right there. So it now comes to the 92. Sasha Kakad has the field back under his control. He's not hanging about. Look at the rooster tail kick up there as he comes down the start-finish straight, determined to pull away as quickly as possible. The BMW Z4 ING Sport, the 55 car, Kevin Clark at the wheel, not even front lights on anymore, let alone rain lights at the back. So I don't know how that's going to be looked at, but he's done it again. Fair play. Sasha Kakad's just monstered it again.
He looks like he's got the pace, doesn't he? And the car in second place there did have some momentum and had to get past Rob Boston Racing the first section of this race, if you like. And he will be getting his pedal to the metal now to see whether he can do anything about the Simpson Motorsport out in front at the moment. It's looking like that gap is developing already.
It certainly is. I mean, saying that, he did a lot as they go down the hangar straight in towards Stowe. In fact, the Rob Boston Racing Mercedes is under pressure now from the Valuga Racing Ferrari, that 51 car that sat there loitering well and truly with intent. Carl Caver's at the wheel of that car at the moment. Lewis Plato will take it over. Is he looking towards the inside as they get down towards Club? No, he just thinks better of it, tucks himself back into the line there. Has anybody told him it's a 2-hour race?
Yeah, that's certainly the impression. I guess you've got to make these positions while you can and while you've got that benefit. Just interesting to think about setup as well. Some of the cars might have gone for a more intermediate setup or a wet setup, and that might see sort of a car like a Rob Boston Racing. If they're set up lower to the ground, they may be suffering more from aquaplaning than other cars. Good
point, very good point. I mean, the reality is we all saw weather reports, but it was changing by the day. It was changing this morning. It wasn't making it clear, the percentage at times was very low whether we were going to see rain at all. Then it was, but how much is it? Now we're here, and this is what they've got to play with. Is you're right that some of them could have had that ride height, it's easy for me to say, a little bit too low, and they're going to have to look at it. A car that had an issue on that restart was the 87 E-Class car, the Sheared Autosport. The number 87 car, Jonathan Beeson, at the wheel of that Audi TCR. That's tumbled down 9 positions on that restart. And again, they've just got to shake it off, regroup and get themselves going as we look at the car that was in the gravel. Now, the way they're looking in that engine bay, I'm suddenly thinking cause or effect.
Yeah, it's hard, exactly that. And we did say, I said at the time, it was strange to see him just drop off the edge of the tarmac into the gravel when he had opportunity to stop it. So maybe there is something else going on there. You can see the gravel still coming out from underneath the car, and it is important in endurance racing to make sure all that has gone before you do set off. But like you say, they're not in any particular hurry. They didn't look like there was the last minute just quick changes. It looked like they were sort of taking more time over that.
The car that's just moved up through the order a little bit is Ian Goff at the wheel of the 98 Race Lab Porsche Cayman. Well, interestingly, that said that I've got it down here as 2 different cars, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, it is a Porsche GT4 Cayman Club Sport car. That's just jumped up 2 places, getting past 36 and 94. The Team Harjanetta and the Motus One Cupra TCR. The pit window is now open, so any of these cars can choose to come in, and we'll be able to see. Can you click that race control message there for me, sir, please? Thank you. The bad news for this 35 car, as I understand it, is that it will have come in prior to that window, so this doesn't count.
Yeah, that one didn't count, so we're on to, he's going to have to come in, is it twice more already, so his race is going to be significantly impacted regardless, and maybe that's why we saw the lack of real energy going into that pit stop.
Yeah, the pit stops that they have to make within this, it's a very large pit window, so they can do what they want. The honest answer, they could even choose to stop more than twice if they really wanted to. I'm not sure why you necessarily would want to, but it's got to last minimum 2 minutes from pit in to pit out. And I was just trying to see the message that I got. Beam to beam is timed at 30.2.
Yeah, so again, another skill for the whole team to have to take into account when you release the driver and making sure that they will have timed that during testing, and they'll have an idea of how long exactly they need to leave before they, the time between the beams, if you like. But equally, in wet conditions and changeable conditions, that adjusts, doesn't it? So you'd think it'll take slightly longer in those conditions, so they're probably less likely to get a penalty, but it's something to keep an eye out for later.
Talking about something to keep an eye out for, there was a car that I was just looking at on the timing screen, the 144, Christopher Compton Goddard, in the R&R Performance Ferrari 458 Challenge car. Do you remember I said earlier that it suddenly got passed by about half a dozen cars, including TCR cars? That safety car seems to have helped it, that it's managed to clear its throat, whatever the problem was, because he just moved up 2 places last time round, up into 15th overall, 3rd, so a bit of silverware within the C class as it stands. And I'm sure he's going to look to try and go even higher, although I think the next C class is sat 5th overall, so quite a way, but with, over an hour and a half left to go, 2 pit stops, we know that there's still a chance. Talking about conditions, Cheesy, is that look at on the time screen, Simpson Motorsport, our pole sitter and race leader, purples across the sectors last time and a new fastest lap.
And you can see that the rain has absolutely started coming down, so I'm guessing that
Go the
was
other
the
way
driest.
now.
It absolutely will. that lap might stick. I can hear in my earphones as well the rain landing on our cameramen out there in these wet conditions as they head off around. But yeah, we're headed back to the kind of conditions we saw on those green flag laps, and it's amazing how quickly that can change. You can see immediately the spray becomes thicker, and the drivers coming through this Magnus Beckett having to ease off again. So where they've worked out where the track conditions were and which way they're heading, they have to quickly identify that, we've gone south again now, and it's wet as you like.
And I think that is probably going to be the way the whole 2 hours is going to go. Even if we have that, I and many of the drivers would hope that it just clears up and it gets better. You just don't know. We've got those windows, and are we going to have the Formula One-esque situation where they're going to be looking at the weather reports to the level that they're kind of going, right, at which point shall we pit stop?
I mean, in Club Motorsport, we tend to look at just looking at all the apps, and we look at get a selection of apps and just check what the radars are.
But they're all different.
They all tell you a different story. And this morning, they very much told a different story. And whether these teams have the setup to go and get a bit more radar up there or get a bit more spotter, I'm not sure. But nevertheless, it's all useful information, especially when it comes to setup. But having no definitive definitive answer to what the weather's going to be, it's always a tricky time for the drivers and teams.
It really is. I think I just saw at the corner of my eye a car coming into the pits again, and it looked like the 35 Mercedes could still have an issue. I noticed as well a car that dropped down the order a little bit was the 36 Team Hard Ginetta, that from memory was leading class at that time, dropped down 5 places, so presumably had a bit of a moment but carried on. We're looking there at the 51 Veluga Racing Ferrari. Crikey, I'll be in trouble for saying that in some corners of the world, won't I? But Carl Cavers at the wheel of that Veluga Racing Porsche. That is your Class C leading car, 4th overall on the road. And in fairness, you've got to look, and he's got that Class C by the scruff of the neck, because I'm trying to look into the background. Where's the yellow Porsche? There it is in the background. The SG Racing 32 car, Mark Cunningham at the wheel. That's second in Class C.
Yeah, so they're still running, not nose to tail on track, but they're certainly running, nose to tail on the timing boards. But as you can see, he's got quite a significant gap now, and both of them will be running in a position on track though where they can see and they can mark, get their braking point and their marks, and that's sometimes quite a comfortable place to be, depending on, you might see a push later on by the Porsche to see whether he can catch up as they approach those pit stops, and when those pit stops are going to be, I guess for everyone at the moment is that decision, and will a fresh pair of wets help at this point if they do swap the tyres, or actually do they want to pause and wait and see what these conditions are going to do?
Into the pits has just come the Class E leading car. That's the Motus One Cupra TCR, car number 94. He says looking down. That was the number change, wasn't it? What was that? That was originally down as 28 on our programme. Brad Thurston and Matt Sherrington. So Brad Thurston has brought that car in. Now that the pit window's open, you're kind of there thinking, well, hopefully that's a routine stop. Also into the pits is the Team Hard Ginetta, number 36. That kept tumbling down through the order on the last lap again, so I think they've been nursing an issue. So it's within the pit window, damage limitation, but what are they hiding at the moment?
Yeah, we'll figure that one out as the race goes on. I think we're just looking at Class D leader here, the number 98 car, the Race Lab Porsche Cayman GT4, as he makes his way around the loop and back out onto the Wellington straight. But yeah, this is the class lead of D. And say in these conditions, some of the class differences or differences of speed are less pronounced, and it can be down a bit more to driver skill and a little bit more down to the sort of style of car. And I know that in sometimes really torrential conditions, you even get front-wheel drive cars able to significantly outperform. As we're back down in the pits there, I think that's the number 94 car there. And that is the Class E car, Motus One Cupra TCR. That
was the one that was leading Class E when they've come in. Now that does look like a standard pit stop, doesn't it? The TCR. I love this with the Brit Car Endurance Championship. It's got those 6 classes. Classes A for those built to GT3 specification and invited cars of similar performance. Class B is modern GT2, Super Trofeo, 488 Challenges and Porsche 992 Cup specifications, non-homologated cars as well. Class C is built to 458 Challenge and Porsche 991 specification and non-homologated cars with a particular BEPI score. Class D, GT4. Class E, TCR Endurance class. So that's great that there's somewhere for these endurance cars to be able to go. Also, they can be run into WSC and TCR 2022.
That was the number 51 car. I think that's Class C leader spinning there. That's a Veluga Racing Ferrari.
Good spot, and that means that the Class C lead is together. Wow, that is incredible. So it must have only been a quick spin, but it's enough to throw him into the clutches of second place, and this is going to then be the old switcheroo to the other side. There we go, the 32 car, SG Racing, makes that move, signed, sealed and delivered. He didn't need inviting twice, did he, Mark Cunningham?
No, the Ferrari's just stuck sideways through Stowe, so he obviously lost it, but not necessarily a complete rotation, as we caught him just rejoining, but he had to not quite enough of a gap to maintain that lead in front, but the 32 certainly pushed that into the veil and made that move stick nicely.
Yeah, very good job, and I think that's what you need to do if the opportunity presents itself, because there was a bit too much daylight. What was the daylight between when it went through? Just over 5.5 seconds it was. So actually that was quite a reasonable stop that he was there to get it all collected back up again. But if he was able to pull out 5.5 seconds previously, shake it off, let it go, get rid of any red mist or anything else and start reeling it back in.
At the moment though, you can see he's regathering himself together. As you see 2 TCR cars, they go side by side as we go into Abbey, that is, on the right hander, the 94 and the 66. So that is we saw some pit stops already happening. So some of these cars will have stopped and others won't, and it's about recovering back through and those relative speeds. But yeah, it's a 5.5 seconds stopped in a spin will feel like forever as a driver, I tell you that for nothing.
I can imagine. I really can imagine. And our pole sitter is in, so the Simpson Motorsport 92 car, Sasha Kakad jumps out of the car, goes for a run. Easy cut, Tiger. But, of course, he does have to get out of the way so that they can refuel. So they are going for a refuel straight away. Interesting. I know that there was rumours that the Ferraris may well be going for, refueling. Look at that rain. You can see it there, can't you? That does not look pleasant for anybody. But that doesn't mean that Sasha Kakad's not getting back in at this stage. He may well do, but you have to get out of the car if you're refueling.
I understand that some cars will be a single driver as well. I'm not sure if that is the case at the moment. I think there is a stipulation you can be a single driver in this championship. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but yeah, he has chosen to relinquish that lead, and the ING Sport BMW Z4 is now leading the race. But yeah, he will be, obviously now taking the opportunity to refuel, and whilst the conditions are as they are, you're not going to have the drawback of weight on the dry conditions. You want as little weight in as possible, especially if you're going to split stints down. But in the wet, it doesn't matter so much. In fact, sometimes weight can be good when you get aquaplaning.
Which, with the increased rain that we could see on the cameras here on the mics, and Cheesy was reporting there, is that you can see that it has changed the dynamic. And this is what I love about this mixed grid of cars, is that you get strengths and weaknesses, not just at different parts of the circuit, but in different weather conditions as well, in reality. Look at this, the Aston Martin is about to dive up the inside of the EDF Motorsports Seat TCR. Job done. That isn't necessarily for class, because the 22 is Class E, second place in the E class at the moment, and the Aston Martin, the Infinity Financial Racing by Team Brit, Aston Martin, is second in Class D. So those two are both second in their respective classes.
Rotation number 41, that is. That's the Stanbridge Motorsport Lamborghini. He was second in class. I think that's
it's difficult to see, isn't it?
But nevertheless, he's another Stowe rotation. So Stowe's obviously causing a problem. A little bit of a backfire there as he tries to respark. We got the Ferrari.
Now, is that the 51? I think it is the Valuga Racing Ferrari. It is. Now, I'm hopeful that flames licking out of the back of the Stanbridge Motorsport Lamborghini. Now, that surprised me that they're struggling to get that one started. Water gremlins. He's now got to try and get this across the grass. There's very wet.
Looks like it's that one to Hanger Straight. That's an awfully long way away from the barrier there. And if they get the car, in fact, that's Wellington Straight, I think, in there yet. It's Wellington Straight. So he's spun coming out of the left-hand kink and just spun it all the way to the inside of the tracker.
Kept turning, basically.
Yeah. If you run the car backwards and if you don't get on the clutch quick enough, then it puts fuel in all the wrong places, which is why you often see those flames coming out the back of the car, and then it takes a little while for that car to refire up.
I've just noticed we're looking again at the 33 Aston Martin, about to be passed by the 44 CTR AlphaTune Seat, which means two cars ahead of him now is the 22 that it had just overtaken, and is now two places further back. That goes to show just how tricky this is. One step forward, two steps back.
It can be as simple as clipping a curb, touching a white line in the wrong place. It will, you'll lose all your momentum because you have to come out of the throttle, or you have to let the car run wide, and that can be enough to lose you places.
Into the pits has come the 51 Valuga Racing Ferrari, the 458 Challenge. Carl Cavers, I wonder if he's going to hand that over to Lewis Plato, a very fast pro indeed. Although fairness, Carl Cavers is a very, very rapid AM as well. So it'll be interesting to see if the dynamic... and there's another element that I love about these championships, is that you get dynamic changes when they hand over to other drivers.
It's the average pace of the car you're looking for over this whole 2-hour period. It's not about one driver, being quick, and you've got to have two well-suited drivers in these cars, and it does make a difference. And again, some of the experience levels of the drivers will change as the race goes on, and then we'll see different cars having the speed.
I mean, the incident for the 51 Carl Cavers in the Valuga Racing Ferrari is a big deal. They sat tied at the top of the overall championship standings with the 144 car of Chris Goddard, and was previously Charlie Hollings, but it's Bradley Ellis this weekend that's piloting that car with him. But that car was doing well because was ahead of the 144 that sat running third in Class C at the moment, both of them in the same class. but that 51 is just going to have to try to keep itself ahead of 144.
Yeah, Bradley Ellis, what a substitute racer to have coming into your car. He knows this track like the back of his hand. He's raced many a time, and in Brit car as well as GTs and all the other kind of championships out there. Very well versed and experienced driver, and good to see him making this appearance in the British Endurance Championship.
I see the Dragon Sport by Amigo Motorsport 66 Opel Astra TCR trying all the tricks of the trade, flashing his lights at the 33 Aston Martin. Who's behind the wheel, did I say, of the 33 car? Dale Abbott at the moment behind the wheel of that car. Flashing his lights, trying to put him off, but I'm not convinced it's going to work. It's funny to see the scale of the TCR cars. When they're next to something like the Aston, it's in isolation they don't look so sizable, but look how it's quite a chunky car, isn't it? And certainly in these conditions, it's able to really put pressure onto the Aston. It is. I wondered whether that Aston was about to dive towards the pits, but it was just a slightly wide run there as it went towards Brooklands. So he got away with it, and it was probably down to that fact that you were saying with regards to the marbles that are on the circuit. It actually got a little bit more grip. I don't think he went off. He went near enough. The 92 race leader pitted, has gone back out again, and we've got down in the pits with Sasha Kakad.
Pretty rough out there in the weather.
Yeah, well, I suppose Britain for you, isn't it? But yeah, no, it's very, very changeable. It's starting to dry up a bit now. As you can see, the cars are getting faster and faster. But yeah, it was okay.
You had the luxury of being at the front, so there's slightly less spray.
Indeed, that was a really nice experience. So yeah, it's obviously much easier than if you're sat in the middle of the pack, just looking at everybody else's spray.
Now, Hugo's just taken over. Is everything going okay?
Actually, we've got an issue with the gearbox where it won't actually downshift. So in the last few laps, I was having to use the clutch occasionally just to get it to go down. So we just master reset the car, and hopefully that's solved it. But we'll see. We'll find out in a few minutes.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Sasha Kakad. Whoa, interesting that one then, Cheesy. Everything looked like it was plain sailing. He had not just the start, but the restart after the safety car, and he looked like he had everything under control, as long as we ignore the warm-up lap when he span it, of course. But it's not all plain sailing, but a complete Control-Alt-Delete, he's hoping it's done the job.
Nice to see the same IT support systems of turn it off and on again is well in effect in motorsport as well. Yes, especially when it's something you don't understand. But yeah, having to use the clutch though, so not the end of the world. It's they will be used to going back to that clutch. Certainly through their junior formula, as they've brought themselves to this level, they would have had to use a clutch at some point. So not the end of the world.
We're looking again there at the 33 Infinity Financial Racing by Team Brit. The Aston Martin GT4 did run wide just as we threw down to the interview there. I think that was going through the sort of Maggots-Beckett's complex, I believe.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. It sort of wrestled itself back onto the tarmac, but it means that I think it's the 66 car that has managed to get past it now, the Opel Astra TCR that was flashing its lights and trying every trick. Well, it worked.
Yeah, I mentioned how slippy it was down there, and I've been watching the cars through that first bit of maggots going through there, and it is as slippy as ever. You can see every single car drifting wide, but the Aston just made it to the grass, and at that point you've got to abandon and go for the bit of tarmac that's just a little bit beyond it, which is what he did, and then rejoin that track. But it's this corner here where the cars really are struggling to get it turned, and when you're sat there in the driver's seat, you turn for the wheel. If you've got your speed wrong by a mile an hour, or if someone's dragged a bit of water from a different part of the track, it automatically affects that. We've got a gaggle of cars here, a little disagreement outside of as they go through Woodcote there as to who, again, Woodcote normally not a corner for most race cars, but in these conditions side by side you certainly get your attention.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to check which one that is. Yeah, it's the 36. That is the Team Hard Ginetta, which actually sit third in the championship, only 1 point but behind the leading two. 83 for the lead two, 82 for that 36 car. We saw it sort of quite high up the order in the early stages, but whatever issue befell it and then came in for a pit, it's tumbled down. So I don't think it's racing with those cars, but in an endurance race, you just got to go for it no matter what.
Yeah, you can't often tell lots of cars around you. Again,
True.
Another car drifting off wide there. It's the Maggot's right-hander. So again, it sounds again from my earphones and looking at these pictures like we've got another cloud burst that's arrived at the circuit. Certainly the puddles are getting bigger and the spray's getting larger. So again, more changeable conditions for these drivers to have to cope with. And you can see the absolute spray of the Ferrari there getting thrown up, and the sort of running water on the outside. That's what you want to watch for, is the running water and rivers coming across the track where it leaches off of the grass, and you know, they act like natural springs and sponges, but they release their water and often into rivers coming across the track, and it can really throw the car if you've got the wrong angle on the steering wheel or the throttle's just a little bit too open and you hit one of those. You can easily spin it, which we've been seeing today.
Yeah, it's and with the fact that that is changing, and all it takes is a car to go off and drag some gravel. I mean, look at that. That's actually interestingly a different colour line, shall we call it? I'm not going to call it drying. That would be ridiculous, but it's definitely a different colour.
It's a bit like when you mow your lawn, isn't it? There's different colours depending on these cars have dragged the water a little bit, but it's, you know, as you mentioned earlier, these massive tyres and the downforce that these cars and the wings that they have does cause that rooster tail, whereas you might not see it in some non-downforce cars. They do drag the water, and I heard stats about how much water these kind of wheel tyres will throw away, and it's an incredible amount of litres per second that they are displacing. So it's no surprise that we're seeing those sort of different colours as we see the wheel tracks of the cars as they go down.
Yes, the 144 Ferrari, the R&R Performance Ferrari, Chris Goddard behind the wheel at the moment. He's battling with the number 50 Aston Martin. Absolutely beautiful in that livery, isn't it? Black with that sort of dark purple. He now needs to be mindful. The blue flags would be sort of notifying him that the 55 car that is the race leader, let's not forget, after the pit stop for the Mercedes that led from the get-go, the 92 car. Where is that 92 car? It's down in 17th place at the moment. But 55 yet to do any stop. Yeah,
so we haven't seen him in the pits yet. So yes, he took that lead quite early on and has clearly decided to make hay while the sun doesn't shine, and is pulling away and into that nice gap out front. And clearly he thinks by being in that sort of following position, he's in by not having done the pit stop, he's going to give himself a better opportunity to move ahead and maybe leapfrog when he does come into those pits. So that'd be an interesting one to happen. We've got until, I think it's the last 20 minutes of the race is when you've got to finish all your pit stops. That's when the window shuts. So there's still quite a lot of action to come out on track, it has to be said.
Yeah, I mean the thing out of interest that we were looking at the 55 BMW that was leading the overall race. The fact that they haven't stopped, and yet they're the one car that's actually got 3 drivers. So that kind of puts itself more equal. That's a menacing looking car, isn't it? That 87.
Bit of a bonnet there, though. That's going to be costing him time, as the wind's going to get under there, and you certainly don't want that springing open. The rain is really coming down now. But yeah, that bonnet being loose, it's going to affect his performance and also be a worry for the teams. I wonder if they've just been into the pits or whether they're still due to come in.
Yeah, I hadn't quite clocked that last time. Well, does it tell us? We haven't got how many stops they've made, have we, on our TSL, sadly.
But that is the shared Autosport Audi RS3 LMS with a little bit of a bonnet poking there, and you can see in the slower parts of the track it's not such an issue, but as you say, it's a mean, aggressive looking car, isn't it? What a sight that makes as it heads around. He's got his window open as well, so maybe suffering some fogging issues early that he's now cleared by having that window open.
Unless he's going through a drive-through in a minute, I don't know, but he doesn't want to fog up. The 32 Porsche is dropped down 7 places. Now, I didn't clock whether that one was in the pits. Remember, that one was racing with the 51 Veluga Racing Ferrari earlier on, when the red Ferrari had that spin. Well, that's gone down 7 places. It's not saying outlap, so I've got a feeling that yellow Porsche had a pirouette somewhere on that last tour. 36, the pink and green, the famous Team Hard livery on that Ginetta, going great guns to try and move itself back up through the order as our leader with nothing on his windscreen at all.
Yeah, it looks easy as you like, doesn't it? That Team Hard car has some attitude coming out of the left field that time, though. Certainly looks like he is on the move and really pushing hard as he comes around club here, and following on from the TCR car just in front of him as they head off down to this really quite uncomfortable, slippy part of the track. And so you keep that in mind. You've got to pick and choose where you overtake, and sometimes it's just as important for the car to know that you're overtaking as it is for you to want to make that overtake. But we've also got the second place car, I think that's Rob Boston Racing there, coming up behind them, so he's also got to deal with this back market traffic to try and get to his battle, which is out front and disappearing off down Hanger Straight.
Yeah, another annoying phrase that I have when I'm commentating is there's one thing worse than back markers, and that's battling back markers, because they're focusing understandably on their battle. And is the Team Hard going to follow through? Yes, absolutely, a fantastic job there, and that is for position. These two are 20th and 21st respectively on the road, both of them needing to sort of try and move up through the order, but the Ginetta has moved up now. I don't know, I could have told you who started that, but I'm not sure who is necessarily behind the wheel of that one now, because, as I say, they don't necessarily have to change. If they've got two drivers, one of them's going to do 2 stints and the other one.
Yeah, and there's Rob Boston. We saw he was right on the outside, or the Rob Boston Racing car was right on the outside of that Stowe corner as he was looking for that grip, and that is the fastest way around in these conditions, right at the outside by the white line, all the way around the outside is where you carry that speed. But yeah, that Ginetta certainly looking like it's on the move and thirsty for more.
Who's this? This is Rob. Oh no, it was our erstwhile leader, the 92 car, now trying to move its way up through the order. Got up to 12th position as the Simpsons Motorsport Mercedes, and is going to try and keep going higher. That was originally down as an invitation class, but that's been removed as invitation. It is legitimately there. Simpson Motorsport Mercedes GT3 kind of seems to be the car to have at the moment. Apparently they're like gold dust to even try and get these Mercedes in GT3 spec at the moment. They're very, very popular.
They're certainly performing well across different championships, and here is the British Endurance Championship is certainly doing a good showing, and he's made up 3 places on that last lap. We've already seen him make up 2 more places this lap through, so he is clearly on the move, and really this is the battle for the lead. We're just seeing it separated by a pit stop ultimately. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when those next pit stops happen, how that is all going to get itself sorted out on track.
Yeah, exactly right. Well, we've lost. I've noticed there's 4 cars that are in the pits and haven't come through. One of those is that 51 Veluga Racing Ferrari, and we've got Carl Cavers down in the pits now. We can find out more.
Hi there, I'm down here with Carl Cavers. Yeah, Carl, just tell us what's happened.
Well, a bit of surface water coming off Aintree, and it just spun us round, and the grass is obviously wet through. So we had good traction stopping initially on the tarmac, but as soon as we hit the grass, we just slid into the barrier. And it's affected the rear quarter, the rear arm's bent, and unfortunately it looks like something's pushing into the gearbox, so we just can't get back out.
It looked like it started quite well, but it's just not going to be.
No, it started really well. We were running 4th, keeping up with the GT3s. Everything seemed to be very steady, but it's very different out there, different corners, different lots of surface water, and it's puddling in different areas. So what you run on one lap can be completely different in a couple of laps' time. And I think that's just what caught us out, really.
Never mind. Better luck next time. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, David. Cheesy, to be honest, that was he's been listening to you. That was pretty much what you were saying about the challenges they have, lap from lap being different, corner to corner being different.
Yeah, just I'd say if a car goes wide onto the grass and pulls a load of water back on, that's a new adventure for you, when even if the conditions don't look different. But yeah, the rivers move as the race goes on, and different heaviness of rain does cause that. And normally in sprint racing, you get used to it in the race, and it's not going to move too much. But in endurance racing, you definitely get that movement of surface water, which just affects you each time. And like I say, at such fine margins, you're obviously, as a driver, you need to push as hard as you can at all times. You can't just take it easy, otherwise you're nowhere. So you've got to balance that risk and reward.
One of the things that always amazes me in these conditions, and I probably shouldn't use this as an analogy, but I've experienced it to some extent when I try sim racing, is how these drivers are able to keep their tyres up to any kind of temperature in these conditions. But it's vital to.
It's so important to keep temperature in your tyres. I mean, obviously the wet tyres are designed to operate at lower temperatures. They have more grip in that early envelope. But if you lose temperature in a tyre, it's one of those catch-22 situations. Unless you're pushing, you're not getting the temperature, and then you're not getting the grip. So then you have to push less. So it's almost like you have to convince yourself that you can do it. It's a brain over what you're feeling as a driver. driver, you're getting all that feedback from the car, and it's telling you, I'm going as quick as I can. But actually, sometimes if you go a little bit quicker, you'll gain more temperature, and then it's a virtuous cycle then of going quicker each time. So it's a tough one for a driver to manage. And yes, it's about that you've got to risk it, and then you get the reward.
Risk it for a biscuit, as my dad used to say. But it is absolutely true. I mean, this is why it was our leader now. Just wow. Not hanging about there, was he? I mean, he could have waited. He
could have done, but he had the momentum. He was on the outside of that corner, and like we say, the outside of the track is... you'll see that oftentimes if you do go to the apex, you're going to slide to the outside anyway. So as long as he was confident the other car had seen him, that was a reasonable... And in the wet, that's quite a standard thing to see.
No, still in the lead is that 55 BMW Z4. So good to see. They've been flat out. Yesterday they managed 2 laps as I saw that the 50 Aston Martin T7 Motorsport car had come into the pits, refueling, so drivers out. Beautiful livery on that. Love those colours. But the lead car 55 managed 2 laps in practice yesterday here at Silverstone. And then they spent qualifying in just 4th gear. And, I was having a chat with Ryan Lindsay, and he said, I hope we're going to be out, but we'll have to wait and see. We're going to be flat out now trying everything to get this gearbox sorted.
We said the pit stops are going to put it under pressure most likely, because that will be the only time really this time we've seen it stop and have to come off from a standing start. So let's see how that goes. But here's that 92 car that has made its pit stop and is got an nice and empty track now, hasn't he? He's made it through all the cars that were immediately in front of him. So he will be he's desperate for the other pit stops to start happening to see where he stands.
Yeah, and that's obviously where we get this interesting situation where we're calling it, the cars where they are at the moment, but we've got a lot to, for want of a better phrase in these conditions, wash out, wash through, and then understand. But what I love about these these kind of races is that they don't know either, so they don't worry about it. They still will pick a fight wherever they are.
Ultimately, you have to race where you are and what you are and where you are on the track. If there's a car in front, then you will aim to get past them. If there's a car behind, you will obviously at this level have the team in your ear as well, letting you know what's going on, and so you know roughly what speed, what your target time is, what level they want you to be at, and where other cars are as far as speed out there on track. So you'll have some of that information coming in. But that bonnet looks like it has been stapled down. So whether he's been back in the pits to do it, but I think it was just a catch that had come undone. So I wonder whether they had been in the pits and just that undone itself. But there is that 50 now back out on circuit after its pit stop. So its windscreen wipers going furiously there, but they're heading out now back onto Hangar Straight.
As the erstwhile leader, the 92 cars ahead of them, just going into Stowe Corner. But there is it's a side by side. That's the 33 Aston Martin Infinity Financial Racing by Team Brit and the Team Hard Ginetta. They are actually running line astern. Absolutely, they are. That's 18th, 19th on the road, 5th and 6th in Class D as it stands at the moment. Oh, a big twitch there from that the Ginetta. The Team Hard Ginetta as he's now through the Vale in towards Club. I thought he was going to have a sneaky snifter up the inside there, but thought better of it, and has taken a very wide sweeping line this time. Tried to see if he can get the drag off, and he's got the power down a little bit earlier. What a fantastic move. That was probably being... but then he suddenly gets twitchy onto the wing, the Hamilton straight. But let's go back to before he did that. That was brilliant, set up like 2 corners before.
Well, he's got back in front now coming into Abbey. He has won the war rather than each of those battles, which was going backwards and forwards. But he pinched the line in outside Club. He managed to find some good grip on the inside of Club Corner there, but he pinched it, and that caused his rear end to step out. And luckily that didn't happen when he was on the curb. He was still on tarmac at the point, and he just managed to reel it all back in, got the opposite lock dialed in, and he caught the car, and he's got a clean pair of heels now. Got to deal now with the Audi.
Wow, and it's caught up with that incredibly quick. So that Team Hard Ginetta, whatever issues it had earlier, and the fact that it was over 2 laps that we saw it tumbling down and then came into the pits, I do think it was a mechanical malady that was befalling it, but they seem to have cleared that one out and got sorted. The 87 Audi RS3, the shared Autosport car, I'm assuming that's the one that is now under huge pressure from the car with who's at the wheel of that 87, Jonathan Beeson, unless they've changed over. That's the problem now. We don't know who's in, do we? Thank you to Steve Wood, because he did get us the information of the start drivers, but that kind of comes undone somewhat now.
Yeah, it's hard. trying to keep track of all these pit stops is tricky at the moment, but it looks like, yes, Rob Boston Racing, number 160, who was in second place, has now come into the pit. So is he going to make it out in front of the 92 Simpsons Motorsport and Mercedes GT3?
That's what I love now, is that we get to watch this sort of take shape to some extent, don't we? And is he going to make it out? In theory, the 92 should get past it, but has he been held up as he way through? And Daniel Brown's now jumping in to the, I think is that the 41 car that it'll be jumping into the Stanbridge Motorsport. It says looking down.
Yeah, it's on the screen now saying that is the Stanbridge Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan ST.
So this is now the pro driver. He went great guns. I'm trying to remember now. It was I commentated on him at Brands Hatch a couple of weeks ago in something else, something a little bit older from memory, but I can't remember exactly what. And he was up on the podium both races, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, so a peddler who knows his business and getting himself a fresh taste of what it's like in these conditions, because don't forget, all the new drivers coming in haven't had these conditions yet. They've been in this dry, so yeah, they've got a world of I'm sure they'll be watching if there's on boards or if they've just got feedback from the other drivers, but yeah, a whole new adventure for them now.
Yeah, and actually I've just realised I was making a mistake with the interpretation of which Audi. Oh no, it was right, the 87. That's just lost out 2 places to what will that be? They've lost out to 22 and 36, I think. There, it's all sort of shaking up somewhat now, isn't it? We've got cars coming out of the pits at the moment. Still in the pits is the Rob Boston Racing, which means I've lost the train of thought that I was originally going to go with there, so I'll let it go.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we can be sure of though is by the time we get down to 20 minutes to go, everything will have settled down and any other pit stops are, you know, so we go through this middle phase of a race where, you know, even teams aren't going to be necessarily aware of everything that's going on. It's quite hard to keep up, but he's got the 144 in now as well, so he's also making his first pit stop in the Ferrari 458 Challenge car.
And how interesting will this be when this goes out? We don't know whether we're going to get a driver change for this 144 Ferrari this time round, but it could be Bradley Ellis jumping into this, and this is where we have the dynamic. Now I do remember the point I was going to make.
Like Bradley Ellis jumping in there.
It did, didn't it? And it's tricky because you're now going out into conditions that you've not experienced yet, and you've got to spend that first lap or two settling into it. However, if you're one of these top level pros, the likelihood is they're going to adapt pretty much straight away.
As a club motorsport racer and getting instruction from people like Bradley, it's amazing how quickly they can get in a car and up to speed. Whereas for someone like me, it might take a session or two just to dial it in, you know, even longer sometimes. They will jump in, they can feel that grip level. As we see the rain absolutely tipping it down now. It's coming down in bucket loads, but they can immediately feel that grip. They've got all the experience. He knows this track, he knows every single bit of tarmac on this track, and knows how to deal with it. So they certainly get up to speed incredibly quickly. So I wouldn't expect to see too many slouchy laps from Bradley as he gets used to the conditions.
Slouchy laps and Bradley Ellis. Never heard that in the same sentence in my life. He'll be straight up there, won't he? It does always amaze me when you watch these these AMs and these pros. I mean, there's a great... Oh, we got a spin there from the McAleers, the number 14 car, and that's got settled and going again there, so no great issue there, but that is not what they'd have wanted. I'm trying to remember now. I think it was Mark McAleer that started. Yeah, Jake McAleer possibly has taken over if they've stopped as well. These guys know the Porsches well enough.
Yeah, they were down 21st position, so they're spinning a little bit lower maybe, although the gaps might be sufficient that they got away with it.
Oh, just looked very tentative through that section there, didn't he? You called the fact that the rain has come back again. That was a lot of standing water that he suddenly went to late corner, coming out of club onto the Hamilton straight, and that looked really uncertain there, didn't it, that car? Yeah,
we saw earlier on there was some fuel. We got the team hard sideways, and both of them hitting some standing water as they went through the link there, going into the loop and then into the so absolutely standing water is back. Wow. You could tell as soon as that team hard car got sideways, and the car in front was also off the pace, but there would have been a new river appeared there. And I was just saying, the puddles that were on the inside of the start finish of the Hamilton straight, they've all now encroached all the way to the right hand side racing line, and you can see how wet it is here as we do go off down the Wellington straight, kicking up that spray again, and you can see those wheel tracks, whereas before it was just that sort of that mown lawn that we talked about, where you could see where the cars had been before.
Wow, I mean, that's just incredible. You saw, certainly two of them hit at the same time and go out of control. The 33 Aston Martin trying to find a non-grassy way back onto the circuit,
Interesting, that's the same part of the track as well, so it's clearly the rain has come down heavily there, although on our cameras we saw it everywhere, so maybe just this circuit has received another cloud bomb as we progress into, well, with half of this race nearly done.
Yeah, because of course that will be down the southern part of the circuit from us, or the bottom part of the circuit from our side. Yeah, nearly at half race distance now, and I'm still looking on the timings. I've got a suspicion, you know, that the Rob Boston Racing 160 Mercedes may be just ahead of the Simpsons Motorsports car this time round, and of course that'll be Hugo Cook that is at the wheel of the 92 car this time, getting used to it. But I'm pretty sure that Rob Boston's Racing have done a fabulous job, almost putting in qualifying laps before they came in for their pit stop. Now, one of the cars that came in, we saw the blue R&R Performance Ferrari 458 Challenge, car 144. Chris Compton-Goddard's jumped out of that one, and he's down with David Smits in the pits.
Hi, I'm down here with Chris Goddard. You just got out the car. Just tell me, what was it like? I mean, you came in leading, but it's a challenge.
It's a real challenge, and we've got some technical issues with the car. We've just reset the car's gearbox because it was going, I was changing up, changing down. Car was going into neutral, going into 7th, so I lost full together, but we just heard on the radio all the gears are back, so hopefully Bradley can give us a decent run on the car, and hopefully we can get back into first. I think we've just, on the driver change, we just slipped into second. So
is that just a bit of water in the system?
We think it's an actuator or something in the gearbox. So, but we've got all the gears again now, so hopefully that will hold us to the end of the race. Bit of sympathetic driving by the co-driver. So
good luck. Thanks very much. Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wonder whether Chris is going to jump in and do the final stint, or whether Bradley's going to do the rest. One car that's going to be hoping it can do the rest is the 87 Sheared Autosport Audi TCR car. That was running in 16th place. That's gone a long way from the circuit, Cheesy.
Yeah, that's down at Vale. Looks like that's the sort of new pit entrance to his right there, and it is a sizable gravel track down there, and he's made it nearly all the way. We saw earlier on they had that bonnet catch loose and maybe back through the pits, but at the moment, yeah, that's in a tricky position, and again, is that going to call a safety car to get that out of the way? The marshals weren't happy that they could get him up and moving, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it was probably tempting, thinking it was quite away from the circuit, but if one car's got there, so can another one, as we know. And I guess the problem there is that you're going to come that between Stowe to Club through that Vale section is very quick, isn't it? And he's just got there, and it's the same part again, not the same corners, but it's down that southern section that hit that standing water problem.
Yeah, we say you've got the rain down there, and also it's slightly downhill as well. There's not another gradient here at Silverstone, but that is one of the places where you sort of do notice this downhill. I mean, it's not like any particularly hilly track, but nevertheless it is downhill, so you do have to take that into account. And if there is a puddle of water there, like you say, one car's made it all the way to the barrier or near to the barrier, then another one can do that. As the marshals now got the machinery out there ready to pick him up, and we haven't yet seen the safety car, so I think they are going to drag him to a position of safety.
That would be great. Well, still leading is the 55 ING Sport BMW Z4, which staggers me that it's not made either of its stops, despite the fact that it's got three drivers to get into that car, ahead of the 98 Race Lab Porsche Cayman, and of course Ewan Hankey's going to be jumping into that one. Ian Goff at the wheel. It was going to be Lee Frost. Ewan Hankey was supposed to be in with my good friend Lucky Carer. Lucky sadly's got a bad back, so get well soon, Lucky, because I know you've had a good couple of races in the British Endurance Championship, so hope to see you back soon.
Going round again, looks like he's gone past the pit entrance there, so another lap under the way for this number 55, the leading car of this race. Like you say, still got its stops still to make, and where this race will fold out because of that, it's hard to say at this point, but nevertheless we've got the two Class A's at the top. He's lost the rear end there as he's coming in, again just under braking, lost the rear end, and sheer amount of water at the moment is causing these cars to aquaplane.
Just listen to the lovely roar as well in the background. But Kevin Clark has now done over half of this race on his own, despite the fact he's got three. Oh, big twitch there. Was he? Yeah, he's wrestled it to keep it on the tarmac. But that looked like Toadie's wild ride through there then, didn't it?
See how gentle they're having to be with all the inputs on the brakes, under the acceleration. Even then it's not enough, and that's what happens when we not only get that temperature gradient that we talked about in the tyres again, bringing back some of the gravel onto the track. That is, the car has been recovered back to the circuit, but you can see how much water there's piling off the bottom of that car, and he's in a tricky place there. He's going to pull to the inside. See all the gravel getting deposited there. He is off the racing line, but nevertheless you can see it was going out onto that racing line. But yeah, just that, so the temperature gradient in the tyres getting lost, but equally, yeah, once the water gets to a certain level and the aquaplaning happens, you just lose all grip. There's nothing you can do other than just go slowly, which is what we were seeing. You just have to sit it out, wait for the rain to abate, and then you can get back on it again.
Yeah, and certainly if you look at last lap time for our lead car, we're looking at again the 55 ING Sport, Kevin Clark. Best lap time for that car, 2:19.2. Last lap, 2:35.5. It is definitely not pretty out there.
No, and but equally you can only drive your car to the speed that the conditions allow, and whilst it may feel terribly slow in the driving seat, as we see again another twitch. The thing about aquaplaning is it doesn't really matter how slow you're going, it still causes you a problem, and it's a bit of a luck of the draw as to whether you hit the water in the wrong place. You can see just still like a powerboat right now, isn't it? Right back to us, probably a bad conditions as we've seen throughout this whole race.
Yeah, I'd agree. I've always sort of wondered what it must be like from a driver's perspective when you aquaplane. I mean, I've done it a few times on the motorway in my road car, and my bum's grabbing the driver's seat, and my heart rate's through the roof, and you're gripping the steering wheel and doing no good whatsoever. But when you're racing at those speeds,
where you've got the conditions, so yeah, puckering certainly comes into it, but where you've got the conditions and they've been consistent, you can expect and anticipate it, and you actually account for it when you're driving around a corner. It's when it happens when you're not expecting it, or the conditions suddenly get worse and you don't know where it's going to be, you cannot account for it. And then it's, again, even in a straight line, we're seeing that Lamborghini just struggling to even just stay in that straight line, and it's when you don't know it's coming up where it can be incredibly difficult, especially when other cars are involved. A lot of these cars are out there on their own at the moment. They'll be sort of easing off that throttle, but it's again, once you are aquaplaning, there's nothing you can do. You cannot apply throttle, you can't apply the brakes, you can't apply steering. You just have to wait it out, and it's almost a bit of luck as to whether you get it all back under control.
It's just so many of them. We just see like a dog wagging its tail, or the nodding dog that you put on your car dashboard or whatever. It just does look and big, and that's the Rob Boston Racing second place car. This goes to show just how tricky it is. That is the second place car overall, which you could almost say may well be the lead for all we know at the moment, because the ING Sport BMW is yet to stop, but that's had a lovely pirouette. It looked like a relatively harmless and quick one, and he's got away with it, but you can't relax for a second.
It's a confidence sapper as well for a driver. Again, they'll have experience enough to know how to turn it back on again, but nevertheless, when it snaps on you like that and you're not expecting it, it certainly saps that confidence, and your brain, you have to convince it again to get back up to speed and realise that it was just a bit of aquaplaning. You log away where that bit of track was that caught you out, maybe push your braking points back a little bit, but you can see every single time they're trying to turn, put the accelerator down, put the brake down, these cars are twitching and complaining, their tyres are screaming enough, but they are pushing on through with 53 minutes of this race to go. Certainly it's at this stage, it's not worth having any kind of issue. You might as well dial it back, give yourself that opportunity to get to the tail end of this race, because who knows what's going to happen.
Absolutely, without question. I mean, the key area that we've seen so many of them struggling for is the left-hander at Farm. So you go along Hamilton Straight past the wing, the start-finish straight that the Formula One cars will use here in a month's time or a few weeks' time, whatever it is. Then you get a fast right-hander at the end, which is Abbey, and then a very fast, in theory, left-hander in Farm that suddenly isn't very fast.
You're leaning on those tyres ever so much. Another little big aquaplaning twitch. So we've got absolute twitches going on, but yeah, the Abbey corner and then into the right, you're leaning on those tyres ever so much, so as soon as they hit a bit of patch of water, then yeah, it changes the dynamics entirely.
Well, an interesting element that I was being reminded of is that the lead car, I was saying that, Kevin Clark, yet to pit in that 55 IMG Mercedes Z4, has done, nearly an hour and 8 minutes. I wonder whether he's just ignoring the pit boards and things like that. He's in now, actually, and I was about to say is that he's got a matter of minutes before he breaks the rules, because they can't do more than, I think it's 60% of the race per driver, and he has now just come in, so I think he knew what was coming then.
Yeah, I think the team would have been on his ear, and if they are worried about that gearbox at all, they wanted to delay that pit stop as late as possible, but also
True.
if the driver's making good progress and is relative to the opposition making those ground, why change it? You know, at the stage, depends who, you know, you've got all the unknowns of a new driver now coming into that seat, and they've got some conditions to deal with now, but whilst the driver's dialed in, knows what those conditions are, keep them out there. They're making better ground potentially than the incoming driver would make, as we just watch them go around that sort of tricky part of the course there, where all the puddles are starting to appear with all this rain that is lashing down. Again, it's not visible outside our window, but as you look on the camera, you can definitely see these sheets of rain coming down as they head off down the Wellington Straight again towards the BRDC clubhouse down at the Brooklands corner, kicking up their roosters as they go.
And that bit that we saw there with the Team Hard Ginetta twitching like mad again was that farm section, wasn't it? It just does appear to be the bogey section at the moment. This Porsche at the moment is absolutely flying. So the 98 Porsche, he says, looking
D-class leader at the moment, Race Lab Cayman GT4 98.
Yeah, so that's why that's flying. That's probably got Ewan Hankey behind the wheel now.
Yeah, there's a name we all recognise.
It suddenly looked quick, didn't it?
Yeah, you can tell from the outside of a car the attitude of a race car, and sometimes you can see when the drivers are having to be a little bit more cautious, and then again, the water's piling out the top of the wheel arches there, as it's just got an awful lot of work to do. But Ewan Hankey there absolutely flying along.
I love looking at the rooster tail on the back of that, the way it was vortex into the middle like a fighter jet going through the clouds. It was incredible to see. As the car that was in the lead for a big chunk of the race, 92, the Simpson Motorsport, sat third overall at the moment. Well, obviously we need to see where this BMW Z4 is going to come out in due course. In fact, it's still in the pits at the moment. This could be interesting.
Well, there was a 2-minute gap, and it was saying it's a 2-minute limit on the pit stops, I think we said, didn't we?
Yes.
They had to be, because it was going to be close. As like you say, he's coming round now, and that other the ING Sport car in the pits will be coming out at about the time he's coming round.
Although that's the 160 that's going to be close to him, the Rob Boston Racing Mercedes, and we're not sure actually. So maybe this Simpson Motorsport is not going to be that close.
They are still losing it in a straight line, and that's never a comfortable thing to see as he makes it way round. It'll dial itself out on the timing screens as they put another lap on next time through, but even in a straight line there, coming down into turn 1, he was still wobbling all over the place. And like I say, that if you're spinning in a straight line, you know that conditions are absolutely on the edge of what's possible.
Yeah, agreed. It's incredible. Drive-through penalty for the 160 car for pit stop infringement. Rob Boston Racing, the Mercedes, in second place on the road at the moment. Possibly was hoping to be challenging for the lead with the ING Sport BMW Z4. The likelihood is that they've gone a little bit too short.
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess how far do you push that? You know, you want to be as tight as you can. You don't want to be losing time in the pits. You can spend a whole lap trying to gain a second. It's so easy to lose that just by a slight lapse in that pit stop. But pushing it too far is going to cost you dear. And at the moment, if that does ping up on our race stewards, the 160's got it. That's going to cost them a lot of time.
We've got the official line from the race control.
Right on your wrist as well.
Yeah, it was.
Very snazzy.
I feel like Knight Rider now. Yeah, exactly. Ask your parents. But so we need to see this. So the outlap now is being done by the BMW Z4. There is the 160 Rob Boston Racing. They'd have been hoping that was going to be challenging. In fairness, that's only just coming through Brooklands and now Luffield, isn't it? So they weren't going to be. Although that does surprise me.
Yeah, there's still a bit of a distance there. Like I say, well, let's see how this all unwinds. But he didn't choose to take that time. I wonder whether they're going to go and protest that. But you can see that Boston Racing is now showing as having crossed the line in the first place. It's just as everything's twisting itself through. We'll see what the gaps are to that second place. But nevertheless, regardless, we know that this car's got to come through the pits now. So he is going to lose that race, or the lead of the race at that point as he comes down against that Team Hard. Ginetta is a around this slippy part of the track, and they're side by side. He's got a twitch on. He's still made it. He's kept it on the track though, and everything dialed itself out. But that was a bit ominous. That was a bit of Jaws music for the Ginetta there, but it was a little bit again, a bit clenched, but it's all good now.
Well, interestingly, actually, because the wording, and it might not be, the full details, the wording is it's a drive-through for pit stop infringement. Now, if it was too short, it's normally a stop-go for the number of seconds that you were short. So I wonder whether that car actually sped in the pits. Quite an incredibly slow speed limit for the pits, 40 kilometres per hour. Yeah,
and if you don't get the button on straight away and it clocks you, you've got to be down to that speed as you get across that line, and before they will check it all the way down the pits to your exit. It's one of the rules that is, there's no question marks over it. And if your limiter just fails, it can happen that you press for the button and it doesn't kick in as you expect it to. So it's a fairly easy thing to do, and it costs racing, and hopefully they haven't cost themselves a win because of it.
Well, interestingly, I've noticed on the timer screen as well, is up into second, so ahead of the BMW, has gone the Simpsons Motorsport Mercedes. Remember, that was the pole sitter, the leader until they pitted, and we thought that the ING Sport BMW, I say we, I'm dragging you down with me now, Cheesy, but we thought that actually that BMW was going to get out ahead of the Simpson Motorsport. Now, was that a longer pit stop because maybe back to the gearbox issue? We're not sure. I guess it's irrelevant. They're out. Let's now watch to see how it goes. Now they're back into the race.
Yeah, look, when they're not running nose to tail on track, it's you have to monitor each and every lap time, and it's pretty tricky to do that. But nevertheless, they got the pace. We're going to see the Rob Austin have to come in. The gap last time through, we are seeing some sort of significant gaps, 41 seconds from first to second, and then another 17 back to this ING Sport. But it's not a lot, given that we've still got 45 minutes of the race to go. That's a significant portion of this race still remaining.
Yeah, I mean, we may be over half race distance, but it is still a significant amount of time. And, still we've got pit stops to be made. In theory, for many of them, it might only be one more pit stop left to make. But I said earlier as well, is that they don't have to limit. They have to make a minimum of 2 pit stops. There's probably no logic why they'd make any more. But you might want to, there might be a reason to be able to,
the only other
do more.
thing we might see is if they need to go onto slick tyres at some point, but that's not looking likely right now.
Well, let's find out what happened with regards to the BMW Z4. The 55 car was brought in by Kevin Clark, and he's down there with David Smith right now.
Kevin, you've just got out of car 55. You left it very late for the pit stop. Was that a tactic?
The track conditions, believe it or not, are changing quite a lot. So I wanted to make sure that they were as bad as they're going to be, and then I can relay that message. Trouble is, if I get out and I'm saying, yeah, it feels quite good going to that, and it's just got worse, it can be off on the first corner. So I was trying to weigh up the conditions, and the standing water is horrific. It was, close along the lines, the worst I've driven, but that's your job. That's what you got to do. Get on with it. So, like I say, I was just trying to drive to the conditions so I was relaying the messages across the radio where the track was deteriorating. It's just got a bit more standing water each time, trying to throw you off the track at every corner, every opportunity you were skitting around. So I was relaying those messages, and I said, when you're ready, call me. So I had the call at the last second.
Great. Thanks very much. Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that confirms what we were suspecting, that it was very tricky out there. Kevin Clark done an incredible job there in the lead. The car's in third place. The car that isn't circulating at the moment is the 22 EDF Motorsport Seat TCR. Was running and just got up to 12th place, which is around 4th at the moment in that particular TCR class. In the gravel, have you worked out, Cheesy, where that is?
And it looked like that was, again, down at Vale, I think. I'm not 100% on that. I only saw a very brief shot, but I think that might be the Vale gravel. But equally, it was hard to tell from the angle. But his next competitor along was only 10 seconds back. He's been noticed down at Vale, yes. Starting to spot my gravel traps.
Now, that's a bit closer to the track, though, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a bit closer to the track, and he's also more buried, so the marshals won't be able to deal with him quite so well. You can see the vehicles, they're going to get him. Less in the firing line though, because the braking angle for the other corners, this is a little bit further through. He's lost the rear end as he's gone through that left-hander at the Vale before you go into club, and then it clearly just got the tail end out. But yeah, not in the firing line, so a little bit less risk, I'd say.
Yeah, and when it's closed cockpit cars like this, that live snatches are more acceptable to do, as cars disappearing into their own plumes of spray along the Wellington Straight, including still localised yellows at the moment, which is good.
Wave double yellows, so drivers be prepared to stop. Literally be prepared for anything, be prepared for marshals out on track and all sorts, so you have to be in a position whereby you are not showing any loss of control there, otherwise the stewards will certainly have strong words and it is an excludable offence. So yeah, it's absolutely, it's so important that marshals put their lives on the line for us, and it's up to us there to protect them by under wave yellows.
We saw the Audi TT that had got back onto the circuit after its gravelly moment down in this same gravel bed earlier, was about to be passed by 44, which was the CTR Alpha Tune Seat Cupra TCR. That's running 7th overall, 2nd in the class. And again, we do get to see where it's working itself out, where the classes still are sort of finding them, even if there's a gap time-wise, they are running line astern on the timer screen.
That's right, yeah, we're starting to see those separation of classes as the conditions get on. There's a little bit of, nearly cleared it all, got rid of all the gravel from the front splitter. You can see it was about enough there to make a few sandcastles, wasn't there? So they're still trying to make sure that all the car is in a good position before they let him back onto the track. As we see just the recovery vehicle moving out of the way, and it will recover back to the track, and hopefully he will drive offline and deposit any stones or grit off that race. You can see how much, exactly.
Oh.
You can see there's a whole puddle. It's quite a shock sometimes as a driver coming round. It makes quite a clattering noise, and say in endurance racing you do regularly see radiators punctured. He is smack on the racing line right now. So that will be a gravelly moment, and we'll see windscreens smashed as well from things like that. So it is important that the drivers, when they first brake, this is where it will deposit most of its stones. It looked like he was moving to the outside though, so maybe he's still in a good position.
Yeah, so in the race, that's a good thing. Another thing that I love about endurance racing is that it is about dragging them back on. That has lost him 6 places and counting so far for the 22 car. That car was started by Richard Avery. Nick Hull jumped behind the wheel. Another pair of racers that I've commentated on many a time, normally in Porsches, but they're out there in a TCR car in this. And it's great. I mean, interesting though with these TCRs, the endurance TCRs, is that they do fettle them differently compared to the sprint TCR cars. We were out for the in Hockenheim for another endurance race. It's an international one, so I'm allowed to mention it in passing. And there was a team had got a brand new, I'm trying to remember now, I think that was an Audi, may have been the Seat, that they'd got TCR, but it was a sprint version, so they raced it in this one, accepting that it was going to be a struggle because it was in sprint format, and their next job when they left that circuit was to get it ready for, get it into endurance trim.
The car's got a different job to do in endurance racing as opposed to sprint racing. Sprint racing is all about that short term, get from A to B as quickly as you can. Endurance racing is very much more about managing situations, and you will, like you say, set up the car, and the componentry and all the kind of things that you'd have on that car can differ based on the different job you want it to do over the weekend. As we see number 80, is that 94 or 84 in there?
94.
That's the Motor One Coupe CCR car, 4th in class as it came in.
And yet that's one that from vague recollection has been at one stage or another in the lead before the first round of pit stops, in the lead. In the background of that picture you can also see the 98 Race Lab Porsche. Oh, the red arrows are in the sky as well. They're not bothered about low clouds then, are they? Fantastic. They're probably from one location to another. But yeah, just pushed back in the background there, you see the 98 Porsche. Now remember, we said it was looking crazy quick. Ewan Hankey was almost definitely behind the wheel. We don't know whether Ewan is staying there or whether Ian Goff's going to jump back in again. But that got up to 4th place overall.
Yeah, and I
That's
think
a Class D car.
I think he might well be sitting in that car still, and we'll probably soon be able to tell if we see him out on the track. The thing. It's worth at this point monitoring the gaps between these front group, because we've got 13.5 seconds down to 23 seconds in third place on the first three in A class, and it's worth monitoring that now because we are coming towards the tail end of this race, and it'll be interesting to see whether those gaps are varying or whether they've sort of settled in or even stretching out. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see in this tail end of the race.
Well, of course, the other thing is that I did spot that the Rob Boston Racing 160 car took its penalty. It did a drive-through because I saw it then showing as outlap, and yet it's still 13.5 seconds clear of the 92 Simpsons Motorsports car and lapping quicker. Now, I think the conditions are improving because that car's just dropped down to a 225. Last time round was a 229.
Yeah, those puddles. There's still a lot of twitching even in a straight line happening, but it's not to the level it was. And as we heard from the drivers in their interviews, it was as bad as he had seen, and certainly on the screen it looked like it. When you just can't go in a straight line, that conditions are right on the edge of what is possible with a race tyre out there, especially as these will be proper wet weather Goodyear on these cars as they make their way round. But the number 21 there as he heads off down at the Wellington Straight again. Like you say, not so many puddles. They're definitely reducing, and out the window it still looks reasonable. But as the cars go down past the pit lane, you can still see the rooster tails absolutely whipping into the air.
That's all we can see from here, isn't it? Is the roosters. It is impressive, though. I noticed that the 98 Race Lab Porsche Cayman GT4 is back out onto the circuit. Dropped back down a few places. The first one was to its sister car, the Race Lab Lamborghini Super Trofeo, the 19 car. What a great day for Race Lab. Lucky Kerr always had this as a dream to have his own team, and he may not be racing sadly today, but the 19 is leading Class B, 4th overall, and will just drop down to second actually, the 98, being passed by Venture Innovations. Now, who's going to be at the wheel? I've got a feeling I can tell you who it is. That 21 car, I believe, has got Matty George behind the wheel now, because has jumped up into 7th overall, lead of Class D, and a personal best lap time.
Yes.
How do you do a personal best in these conditions?
I mean, yeah, exactly. So clearly, the conditions are clearly getting there. Like I say, the drivers, I don't think they'd even mind saying it. There is a spread of talent in there, and oftentimes that is the design of these endurance championships. So you have sort of the pro-am situation going on. That's the whole point of them. And we are seeing lots of green arrows pointing upwards, and obviously there's corresponding red arrows pointing downwards as positions do change across classes and across all the cars out here. And as the conditions change as well, it's about whether a driver sort of spots and notices how much more time. If they've just had a confidence sapper of a spin or something like that, it can be quite tricky to get your brain to get back up and get back to that racing limit again. Yeah,
that Race Lab 98 Porsche there, that it got up to 4th overall. The pit stop that it's just come out from has dropped it down to 9th place, second in class. The bad news for it is actually looks like there's a car between it and the Venture Innovations lead Class D car, the Mercedes GT4 leading the Porsche GT4 at the moment. It's all German domination there, of course, but doing great. But here is that 90. It just looks brighter as well, doesn't it now, in general?
Yeah, the lack of spray means that we can actually see most of the straights now rather than that, and you can see the puddles whilst they are still there. They're less, significant as far as where they are mostly on the track. We are again not a dry line, but a drying line.
And that is a move for overall positions on the road. The 98 Race Lab Porsche has just got past 66, the Dragon Sport by Amigo Motorsport. That 66 car, Reese Lloyd or Max Coates, another very rapid pro as well. But that is a Class D, running second in Class D, third in Class E even. That now means, although the time is probably a good 40 seconds between the lead two Class D cars, but they are 7th and 8th respectively on the timing screens overall for Venture Innovations 21 and 98 Race Lab, the Porsche that we're looking at now. That we're still yet to really properly determine, but it looks like maybe Ewan Hankey has grabbed the scruff of the neck of that Porsche again and is going to bring that through to the close. I mean, we've got 14 minutes until the pit window closes, so we've got to see the 55 car to come in again. But I suppose it's not an issue because so have the two above it as well.
Exactly. Everything's sort of even at the moment. It is going to come down a little bit to those pit stops, which are time limited, and therefore we shouldn't see them having too much of an impact, assuming that refueling, if they've got to do anything like that left to do, doesn't take them outside of that window. I'm not sure whether it takes them longer than that or whether 2 minutes is sufficient to do both jobs. but nevertheless, there's a lot of variables in a pit stop, and they often see them change race results, don't we, as they go through. You can see that position just updating on the timing screen to reflect what we've just seen out on the track there, as this 98 making its way through club.
And the 66 car that he passed has just come into the pits this time, so it was almost a futile. One that I have just noticed is the 32 Porsche SG Racing. I think that's the yellow and black Porsche from memory. Was leading Class C, has just lost 3 positions on that last tour, and looking at it, it's 6 seconds were lost on the first sector. So it must have had a spin there, because normally it would tell us it's on an outlap, so I'm not aware. There's the yellow and black Porsche in question, 32. Just looking at that to see if it looked a bit steady, but it's always an optical illusion as they come towards you. But that means that it's relinquished the lead of Class C back to that blue with the Italian sort of tricolor front to back Ferrari 458 challenge car. Chris Goddard we heard from earlier, and of course he's jumped out and handed that over to a certain Bradley Ellis. Back into the lead, and he said that he was disappointed they'd lost the lead of that class. They've got it back again now.
Yep, and there's no visible, there is that car on circuit as he's going around the outside here. Luffield is grippy around the outside there, so you can probably see this position being taken. It's one of those surprising things from the outside. It doesn't look like that could possibly be the quicker line, but in these conditions, the outside of the track has so much more grip that even if you lose out some time because you're going a significantly longer around the circuit, you gain it all back because of the grip and the acceleration you get out of the corner, and that's what counts over the course of a lap. It's not about individual parts of speed, it's about how do you make that fastest all around the complete 3.6 miles. What was that strange thing? I think it was a mirage as he went over the top of the thing there, off into the Beckett's S's.
Very Ewan Hankey there, really just wringing the neck of that car, wringing it out in these conditions. Into the pits I've just seen out through our window. We don't get to see too much out of that, but the 32 Porsche that I said seemed to have lost some time earlier has come into the pits now. Every chance it's just a routine stop, but it relinquished the Class C lead to the 144 Ferrari. The 98 Porsche we're looking at, it's now separated by another car before it can get to the rear of 21, the Venture Innovations Mercedes that's leading Class D, because 21 has got past the 44 car. As it's not an issue, that car, because it's just coming out of the pits, my apologies, silly comment there. So they are line astern, but there's 32 seconds between them.
Yeah, we're coming down to the business end of this. We've got 11 minutes before the pit lane closes for any final stops that need to be made. It's worth pointing out as well, especially in conditions like this, that we're on a MotoGP compatible track, which means that actually a lot of the sort of stripy curbs that you'll see are actually incredibly flat and grippy, which is why you'll see people like Ewan Hankey absolutely leaning on them even in these wet conditions. Around other tracks, you will find that those the curbs are very much anything but grippy in the wet conditions, but MotoGP they put some grip stop or something on those curbs, which actually makes them usable even in conditions such as this.
Yeah, it's good to see Team Brit. Wonderful story with everything that goes on at Team Brit. They do a fantastic job racing a tour, and the team to keep this one going as well, and it is brilliant to see them out there. Where are Team Brit? And we were talking about Ewan Hankey being out of the wheel. We can confirm he definitely is, because down in the pit lane we've got his teammate Ian Goff, who's going to have a word with David.
I'm here with Ian Goff. He's just got out in 98. That was a pretty impressive stint. Apparently that's the first time you've been in the car.
Yeah, it's the first weekend for us in the Porsche Cayman in the brilliant British Endurance Championship, and we started from the pit lane. A bit of an admin error let us miss the start, so we had to start from the pit lane, and I think actually that worked in my favour. Never raced here before in this car, never driven with full wets on before, so I meant I got to start off the back where it's probably most safe and pick my way through. But the car gave me a lot of confidence. The team have done a great job. I've got a great driver with me, Ewan, as well, so everything was set up for a good run, and I was grateful that we could keep it clean. Did some great overtaking moves, I think, and it got us to the front of the pack.
For a first time in the car, I mean, these conditions are pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I've raced here in the Walter Hayes Trophy in Formula Ford in November, so it's the one thing I am used to, it is wet weather at Silverstone, so that helped, I think, and if you're quick in a Formula Ford, those cars move around a lot. And so I think that was a good preparation for what I experienced today. But put that to one side. I'm really pleased with my performance. I think we delivered on expectations and maybe a little bit more. And again, it just comes down to got a really stable base underneath me. Car was brilliant, confidence inspiring, and so we could just work into the lap times. And super happy with that.
Great, thanks very much. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, David. I'm glad it confirmed it. I was convinced when I heard the name that it was Formula Ford race, Ian Goff, and now I know that it definitely was. I thought for a second there that meant that we got it wrong for that second stint, but look at you. He's just pushing it to the limits. These pros, they tell you don't get a refund for only using half the circuit.
Yeah, you've paid for all the grey bits, so you might as well make full use of them. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he's certainly pushing that one, and so that was one of the cars that started from the pit lane. They're running in 7th place overall now, 2nd in Class D, and closing at sort of about 2 seconds a lap on Venture Innovations, the 21 Mercedes AMG GT4 that's leading Class D. That is the GT4 cars, of course. Still big twitches there, so they've got to be totally alert.
Interesting though, we've got a 2:18 on the last lap for Rob Boston Racing, and that's only just off their best lap. In fact, that was their best lap last time, so I think conditions now are being right back to where we were before that first cloud burst, which, after the start where there were pretty poor conditions, it just improved through to, I guess, about where they are now until we saw the next bit of rain. But at the moment it's brighter outside our commentary box window, so yeah, maybe we're in for a little bit more of a drying line as we come into the finals. 27 minutes of this race to go, still plenty of time for positions to swap, action to change, and still pit stops left for some of the drivers out there.
Yeah, and notice our 2nd place and 4th place cars have both come into the pit for their final stop. So the 92 Simpsons Motorsport Mercedes, our pole sitter, that is now in. 4th place was the 19 Race Lab. That is your Class B leading Lamborghini Super Trofeo. That is in for its final stops, but of course we've still got those to be made around. They've only got 6.5 minutes left to get this final pit stop done, get potential driver change if any of them need to refuel, and it does appear that they're going very tactical with their fuel volumes on top. The 22 car has paused in there to make sure it managed to get round, and that's at Luffield. 19th place that car was running. That's the 2nd time that it's had a moment on opposite ends of the circuit, but got away without that being in the kitty litter.
Yeah, I wonder whether that's a sign that weather's coming in, but it doesn't look like it from that camera shot. Still got the roosters, but no, yeah, we've certainly seen a bit of action from the car. We've seen it in the pits as well, so there's its window still open and making sure they can see out the front. But as this race develops on, spins like that are becoming more crucial. You've got less time to recover from them, so you want to make sure you minimise all those issues. The team will have to be doing a bit of recalculation about what's best. As you see the 87, who we've also seen having a few adventures in this race, they're nicely catching up with the car in front as they head up the Lewis Hamilton straight.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I was waiting for that to turn because I thought that was the 44 car, so that wasn't necessarily for position, but it's just as important to try and unlap with pit stops yet to be made. Up into 2nd goes the 55 BMW, because this car we looked at has done its final stop just ahead of the Rob Boston Racing Mercedes, but there of course will be at least a lap within it, possibly 2. No, it must only be the 1. No, it'll probably be 2 laps when they come to the old. Hence Rob Boston Racing, the 160 Mercedes, flashing its lights, just making sure. That's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, a pit stop here, so 2-minute pit stop. They're doing sort of 2-minute 18, 2-minute 19 laps, so you're sat in the pits for the best part of that lap, and now, we've got the race leader coming up against one of his competitors who's actually just made more pit stops, and really they're still fighting each other, but the rules are he is in ahead, therefore blue flags. He should respect that, and at least he should pay homage to those blue flags, given that he isn't the race leader right now, but he is fighting him.
Yeah, it's an interesting one though, because of course a lot of championships it's actually the responsibility of the faster car behind to get the job done, and just that the car that's being lapped don't keep deviating and defending. So in reality that could and should mean that 92 car does not need to move off the racing line. The difficulty is, of course, they're now trying to put a lap on the 98 Porsche of Ewan Hankey, which is going to happen now. Rob Boston Racing dives into the pits. They may as well. They're going to get stuck there, get it out of the way, get it done. They then come out, and then it is the true fight for the rest of this race.
Yeah, so we continue the pit stop now for him in the pit stop, and he will then have, he'll come out and be somewhere around that 18 to 19 seconds ahead would be what we would expect to see there. But yeah, an interesting thing there, and see whether ING Sport as well, they're going to go and take that lead around now that they are sort of, they've still got a pit stop to go though.
And that, judging from this, I can tell that Sasha Kakad's jumped back into the 92 car now. The Simpson Motorsport sat there in third because Hugo Cook was just being caught on camera. I think we're going to hear from him very shortly. Sasha Kakad was the one that was lapping quicker in that car, although that might not be totally fair because Hugo was doing it at the worst possible conditions. But Sasha Kakad is now at the wheel of the 92. Hugo Cook down there now watching his teammate to see whether he can fight from that third place as the cars around him take their pit stops already, and it's just going to be excited watching this one through. So David Smith has Hugo Cook from the 92 car. Let's find out how he got on.
Hugo, down here, just explain what's happened. I think you had a bit of a delay.
In the first pit stop, we had a bit of a delay with. I'm not too sure what it was. I think it was we were slow with the fuel or something. I'm not sure, but that set us back a bit. Now we're just trying to be clawing back the lead. Well, the advantage with what they've got.
It's now coming down to sort of the final stops. So where are you set for the race at the moment?
We should be about 9 seconds off the lead, we hope. And yeah, I think P2 at the minute after all the pit stops happen. So we'll see how we do.
Great. Thanks very much.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Hugo. I mean, that's quite incredible that they're able to work it out to that level, that degree. I mean, I say accuracy, we'll wait and find out, but that they think they'll be sort of 9 seconds behind the leader as here comes that 92 car, putting a lap on the 32 Porsche, or will be imminently the 17th place. Second in Class C is that yellow and black Porsche, of course. Indicates to say that they are moving out of the way. They know that they don't need to stay fighting. That's the Cunninghams. Peter the dad and Mark is the son. So Sasha Kakad is just going to be like Fred Flintstone, pedaling this thing as quick as he possibly can without knowing what he's racing ghosts at the moment, because until they come out they don't know exactly what they got to play with.
That's it. The team will giving him his marks and what they want him to do lap time wise, and it'll be up to him to trying to mark that, and they were keeping him up to date, no doubt, with, like you say, where the ghosts of the cars are. As the pit stops wind out, then those cars will become reality at some point, and hopefully we'll see a nice climax to this race with some race cars on track together.
Well, I was about to say we're only just over 30 seconds left till the pit window closes, and I just noticed that the Rob Boston 160 BMW, Rob Boston Racing Mercedes, I couldn't get that more wrong if I tried, is on his out lap. And as I look to our window, and we can just see the pit in as they come in, and the ING Sport BMW Z4 snuck in right at the last knock-ins, doing their final driver change, and that's going to be Ryan Lindsay's going to be jumping into that one. Ian Lawson will have taken it over for the middle stint here. And so Ryan Lindsay, he's relieved, because I told him that the amendments on the programme said that he was no longer racing that car, and he was in his overalls and said, "Oh, they had told me."
Yeah, you don't want that news, do you?
No.
Sorry, you're not.
So
needed.
I ran.
yeah. But as see this, we are coming down to that crucial phase, like you say, just diving in at the last minute. You're kind of hopeful then that you don't have a spin or anything. If you're cutting it that fine, he literally had about 15-20 seconds left. Cutting it that fine does mean that you cannot have an issue on that last lap.
So this is the car that's now going to pick up the lead. The Rob Boston Racing is going to come through and go past the ING Sports BMW Z4. We couldn't see in the background the Simpsons Motorsport, the red and black 92 Mercedes yet, and we need to let them just cycle this one through to be able to have comparable lap times to see what we're going to see from these two cars.
Yeah, the timing screen's going to be our friend, I think, in the next lap or two, as it does settle itself in, and we'll get them across the start-finish line. Then we'll have a true position of how we're going to go into this final 20 minutes, and now we're going to start coming into sprint race format. You know, this is, you know exactly where you are relative to everyone else. You can see on the timing screens, and it is just what can you achieve in those final few laps, as we've still got those, you know, good conditions as we've seen all race. So, and it's been fairly consistent now, hasn't it, for quite a little period, so the drivers will all be used to the conditions now. It's not an adventure every single corner anymore. They have learned how to pedal these cars as quickly as they can in these conditions, and there's that nice wide line through Vale. You can see quite how wide you go, and as I say, as alien as that would look to some people out there, it is actually the quickest way of driving these cars on the circuit. And
that was very deliberate, wasn't it? You could see that time round. It was deliberate. Now, the ING Sport BMW Z4 is on its out lap. The Rob Boston Racing, now obviously we've got to hope that they didn't go short on the pit stop again, or should I say they've got to hope that they didn't, to be more precise. Simpson Motorsport believe that it could be about 9 seconds. I got a feeling at the moment we're looking more like 21 seconds. There's a song in there, 21 seconds, but I'm not going there. But it looks like it could be a little bit further, and that was interesting, wasn't it? We hadn't clocked that there was a bit of a delay in the pits, and that's just heartbreaking, isn't it?
Yeah, it's say as a driver you spend an awful lot of time. There is the 55 there currently in the lead of this race, but yeah, you spend a lot of time trying to gain a little bit of time out on track, fighting for every single tenth. So obviously a pit stop's got so many variables, and just a bit of a delay on getting one of the fuel churns attached, or the air relief valve going, or whatever it happens to be, and suddenly it might take you another 20 laps to fight that time back again.
Incidentally, by the way, we were talking earlier about Ewan Hankey at the wheel of the 98 Race Lab Porsche Cayman GT4. That car has now taken over the lead of Class D again, because the Venture Innovations 21 car has come into the pits. In fact, up into second now in Class D goes the T7 Motorsport Aston Martin, number 50. Didn't see any penalty, but I did notice that one had a team manager call from memory. That's the black and purple Aston Martin that has jumped up there. Up into second does go the Simpson Motorsport. So Rob Boston Racing 160 is in the lead by 23.5 seconds. 92 Simpson Motorsport in second, and the Z4 BMW, there we see it, the number 55 car, ING Sport, tucks itself into third place at the moment, and I think it's next time round we'll get a better feel for seconds wise what big turning left and a right hander is never what you ideally want, is it?
No, it happens more often than you think, though. It's sometimes if you get the drift right, you're actually constantly turning the wrong way through a corner. It feels great as a driver to do it, but in these conditions it certainly get your attention. But the sound of that car just getting its power down as well, what a glorious sound it was as it exited out of left field and headed down the start finish straight.
So we're now rapidly approaching the final quarter of an hour, the final 15 minutes, or 16 it is at this precise moment, of this 2-hour race. And it is the 160 Rob Boston Racing in the lead. Needs to be mindful of the car behind, and he is, because he's just gone purple sector 1 to try and stretch his legs further at the front. That 160, either Wayne Mars or Tom Jackson, with it being a personal best, no disrespect, but I suspect that it's Tom Jackson, the pro, that is at the wheel of that car. Simpson Motorsport 92 in second, third 55 ING Sport in the BMW Z4. In fourth and leading Class B is the 19 Race Lab Lamborghini Super Trofeo. In fifth and leading Class D is the 98 Race Lab Porsche. What great job for the team. In sixth and leading Class E is number 60, the EDF Motorsports Cupra Leon car. And leading Class C currently is the 144, that blue R&R Performance Ferrari 458 Challenge that we saw Chris Compton-Goddard jump out of earlier, and that is 13th overall, but leading Class C. Have we covered? No, we should have a Class F leader, which is the RVR UK Racing car number 14. The Macaleers are leading Class F at the moment. So that is your current race leaders at the moment. Your leader overall is that 160 car. Jumping out has been Wayne Mars, and he's down with David.
I'm here with Wayne Mars. You've just got out of 160. Just tell me, it's going pretty well at the front at the moment.
It's all looking good at the moment, but you never know, do you? So we got fingers crossed it'll all keep going. So
the conditions seem to be changing. It's starting to dry. Is that going to change anything?
it's starting to dry, and we never changed our wets up. We're hoping that they're going to hold out. So as long as they hold out, it should be okay.
Good stuff. Thanks very much. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, David. Wow, so that's interesting. Wayne Mars, somebody I'm used to seeing in Ferraris. He races alongside the likes of Chris Goddard and what have you, and it's great to see him out there in a Mercedes and at the top of this field. I'm used to seeing him at the top of fields, that's for sure. Interesting that they've gone with the same wets on. Now, what happens when wets get worn down? They become a bit slicker, and so they're hoping that the tyres are going to sort of evolve with this the race conditions here by the looks of it. But that 92 car there is trying desperately to reel it in, but the new personal best last time round by the 160 means that the lead was stretched ever so slightly. A new fastest of anybody, sector 1 by the 160 car, means trying to go for it even further. In fact, it is a second and a quarter quicker just in sector 1 for the Rob Boston Racing at 160. Tom Jackson at the wheel of that car now, but Sasha Kakad in 92 there, just trying to keep everything steady, everything safe. Still got a good second place there because he's 33 seconds clear of the 55 BMW that you see there. That ING Sport BMW Z4 is sat in third position, and that will be Ryan Lindsay at the wheel of that car. Hence we're now also seeing personal bests. Actually, that's not fair, that's because we're seeing personal bests. These conditions are possibly to around about the best we've had for all of this race, and so we should see the times tumbling. We have a new fastest lap of the race last time round by the 160 Mercedes. It's dropped down to a 2:16 now. That's 3 seconds off what was the fastest lap previously. No, it isn't. I've just looked at the wrong column. It's a second and a bit, a second and change quicker than the fastest lap last time, but you get the idea. It is getting very quick indeed. So the 55 car, when you see it cross the line, we'll be able to see it is, last time round, did lap quicker than the 92 car. So it'll be interesting to see if he can reel that in to challenge for second place, or if there's just a little bit too much work to be done. But these times are absolutely plummeting, Cheesy. Look at it. We had a new fastest lap last time round by Rob Boston, and he's gone even quicker in sector 1 again.
Yeah, and only sort of 11, 12 seconds, 13 seconds between second and third out there. So that ING Sport BMW Z4 is, like you say, will it be able to catch up? It was 2 or just a second and a half to second or half second slower, faster that last time through. So yeah, it's certainly in the right direction, but with only 11 minutes to go, is it enough?
Yeah, it's tricky to say. It was 31.5 seconds between third and second, so it's a big margin to make up. But, I mean, what was that last time? That was a second and a half. So he's made up a second and a half. I mean, I think it's going to be too little too late.
And equally, I think the Simpson Motorsport in second place will know that they can be protective of that gap. They don't have to push it, and they can take it easy.
Someone who's not taking it easy, flashing his lights. I mean, how menacing does that Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo look? I'm assuming that's the one that Lucky Carer has pedalled rather rapidly himself in the past as well. And that is leading Class B by a very comfortable margin. Yeah, the 41 Stanbridge Motorsport is down in 11th, whereas this car is 4th overall, leading Class B just, I was about to say patiently picking his way past the back markers. That was probably the scariest sight for a back marker I think I've ever seen.
You wouldn't be surprised to see a villain or Batman getting out of that car, would you, as he's driving into the pits after that? Certainly got the attitude out there on track, hasn't it?
Now, I just noticed he went right over to the left. They're now starting to try to find the wet spots.
Yeah, cooling off your tyres again if they feel like they're, these tyres have a window of, operating temperature. There is the Class D lead currently on screen now. Is that Hankey in that Class D car? So he's doing well out there, and they've certainly moved back through. But yeah, certainly looking for the cooler parts of the track to get those tyres into their optimum window.
Yeah, exactly. And one that I suspect isn't going to do that is the lead one, the Rob Boston Racing, because they are attempting to sort of skim down those wet tyres. They've left them on deliberately. That I assume deliberately that could be an angle that they've gone with, but see whether they can make it last. But that Class D car leading the way, as we're saying, Class D from the pit lane start, 5th overall on the road. Incredible.
5th overall. What a performance by that car. Yeah, absolutely brilliant to see that. And Yeah, here is the Class E leader. That's the number 60 EDF Motorsports Cupra competition car. Again, he is doing well as well. So he is currently 6th overall. So those class leaders all coming sort of in that 5th, 6th place on the track there.
Well, yeah, 4th, 5th, 6th.
6th.
Yeah, exactly. It's really impressive. And that's Ashley Woodman and Martin Byford in that Seat Cupra TCR car. And it's one of those ones that confuses us commentators, because from one side it's green and black, on the other side it's red and black. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, that is almost deliberate. It's like the old VAR days, isn't it, where they had the zip down the middle and having two different things. But yes, you're trying to work out the colour of it and describing the colour of it to a commentator ahead of time. Not easy, that's for sure.
Not.
Is that heat haze coming across the barriers there, maybe?
Could be. I mean, yeah, whereas it's sort of like just starting. I mean, there's been numerous times, even when on one half of the circuit it's been miserable, that you look out and the clouds are certainly a lighter colour. I wouldn't say that the sun's burning through, but it's certainly a lighter colour.
But with the ambient temperature we've got, things do twist around quite quickly. I don't think with 8 minutes to go we're going to have too much time left over to see anything drying out fully. But yeah, like you say, we're trying to get cool tyres though.
Jake and Mark McAleer sat there in the number 14 car, leading the way in Class F. These guys really know, this father and son team really know how to pilot these Porsches, and whether it's outright victories in the Porsche Championships that they've secured, class championship honours, one in one class, one in the other. I mean, what a year that must have been for them, and they're still going fantastically well here. Looking a lot safer now. Earlier on, that car we said looked very, very uncomfortable in the serious conditions, but now it's looking like it's settling back into itself, that there's not as much of an issue. I've just suddenly seen on there, I haven't seen it on my phone, I'll just have a quick look to see if I'd not. Yeah, car 41, pit stop infringement, drive-through penalty. Now that's the Stanbridge Motorsport Lamborghini Huracan that is running 11th overall, 2nd in Class B. That's going to drop it back, I think. Well, yes, it is, because what did they say? 30.3 beam to beam. It was 20 seconds ahead of the 3rd place in Class B, the 23 AF Corsa Ferrari. Now, I haven't talked about the 23 car. That's got an incredible pro driver, Johnny Molam, at the wheel. And it's with a very lovely, lovely guy, one of the nicest guys I've met in a paddock, William Tewiar. He taught me how to say that, because he said, say there we are, and it's then Tewiar. He started up a Zen Petroleum over in Ghana. He says he's the fastest West African on the circuit today. All right, that's his comments. And he set up Zen Petroleum over there, and he'd never been in the industry, no idea of it, and he's now the biggest business over there going, and he's got all fuel stations over there. Wonderful guy. He raced his first race earlier this year. He raced a Porsche first race. Today, in a Ferrari second race.
Yeah, nice. And living your dream, racing cars around British.
With Johnny Molam as well.
Molam at your side. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah.
Very nervous though he was, I'll give him that. But fair shout. We're looking at the 55 car, which has had a fantastic day today, and Kevin Clark started that one, and he's down with David.
Kevin, down here with you in the pit lane. Obviously, it's a close fight now for the lead, and conditions are changing a bit out there as well.
Yes, it is drying a little bit now, so that's quite nice, but now it's a case of just keeping it on the island. We haven't got the pace to run with the AMGs anyway, but we can try and stay on the tails of them so that if there's an issue, pick up the pieces.
Wonderful, thanks very much. Back to you, Chris.
Yeah, great to hear that. They're trying to do the best. It's still a big smile on his face there, even with I'm sure that he wishes he was up with the Mercedes GT3 cars, but he's enjoying himself up there. That 55 car has gone well. Almost one of the ones that we could really see the aquaplane in most at one stage amongst any of them. Now I'm just checking the 41 car. Yes, it's now taken its drive-through penalty, so the next time round we should see that shake itself out. But interestingly, the 66 Class E 3rd place car, Dragon Sport by Amigo Motorsport, actually got up ahead of the 23 car last time round. So we'll have to wait and see how that works out. We've got a 5-second penalty track limits for the 56 car. Well, that's a bit further down through the order, isn't it, I think? So that doesn't affect our key fights at the top. I might be wrong actually, I'm just trying to even see it. 50, it does say 56, doesn't it? I'm not sure where a 56 is.
I can't see a 56 either.
No, we don't have a car 50. I'm glad I wasn't going insane then. I was convinced that something was wrong. So we'll wait and see which one that is. Unless that is 66, which would be the Dragon Sport by Amigo Motorsport. That could be a 5-second penalty for 66, and we can't quite see it there.
And that is Class E, third in class, so and just made up a place from the other pit lane infringement that we had to go through last time. So yeah, he might be dropping a bit back down through the order as well. I think you're right. I think it's our timing screen just a little bit out of focus, isn't it? Just I think it might be car 66.
Or our eyes. We're getting old, mate.
Definitely getting on at times. But we are down to the last 3.5 minutes of this race with 2 minute 15 or 2 minute 16 lap times. We are coming down to the sort of penultimate lap time, aren't we?
Yeah, it's getting very, very close indeed. I can't believe it. I've blinked and it's nearly gone. But Rob Boston Racing, the 160 car, still, I mean, it's now backed off, I would say. In terms of lap times, it's shown off. Tom Jackson has enjoyed himself jumping into that car, stretched his legs at the front of the field, and just made sure that he broke the spirits as well as any potential toe of the cars behind.
Yeah, sometimes it is just about making your intentions known. Everyone knows that they can then settle back. If you give them a little bit of a sniff, they might well come searching you out. But at the moment, he put the hammer down. He got that fastest lap that we've seen today with 2:16.0, and now he's about 1.8 seconds off of that. And the last time through, as that Lamborghini comes through again,
it's brilliant.
It looks absolutely spectacular in these conditions, doesn't it? Brilliant.
It does, and I love what Lamborghini have done with the shape of that car, with that scoop on the top at the back there as well. I mean, it just looks like a shark or something. There is your 144 car leading Class C as well. So Chris Compton Goddard. Now I don't think we can really tell whether. I suspect he's in the pits at the moment. It's Bradley Ellis behind the wheel of that car, and just another one that has just gone really well. And they haven't let the ups and downs of the pit stops affect them. They've just run their race and seen themselves sat relatively comfortable as it sits in the minute, leading Class C.
Yeah, and here's the next leader down. This is Hankey in the 98 car, so that is the
Class
D lead.
Yeah.
And again, another driver that has just, that as soon as he got in, you could see the attitude of it during those really tricky conditions, and he sort of solidified his result. And he's just going around Beckett's and comfortable, and has been comfortable in that position for a while. I'm sure it hasn't felt always comfortable in the driving seat, but he's certainly solidified his position quite early. Yeah.
No, I'd agree. I kept looking closely. I thought there was some damage on the front there, but it wasn't in the end. It was just a bit of an optical illusion by the looks of it. But when you consider that car started from the pits, behind it, one place lower on the overall positions, is the number 60 EDF Motorsports car, the Cupra Leon Competizione, that is leading the way in that. The number 60 car, which it was started by Ashley Woodman, and Martin Byford has jumped in. Not sure which of them's going to be at the wheel this time round, but so far they are in the lead of that.
And we have just seen the lead. These are the leaders all coming across the line to start their final lap now, as we hold in this view down that start-finish straight. And yeah, these. So we are definitely onto the last lap now. We've had there's a bit of a very late move there into the gravel trap almost for the Team Brit car.
Yeah, thankfully, it was Cops there, which has got the biggest runoff in the world type thing. So the Team Brit car is able to get away with that one. No great issue there, thankfully, for the 68 car, 17th overall, 5th in Class D. There is your Class F leaders, the Macaleers, just still screaming on. But our overall race leader, there he is. He's just coming through club at the moment, about to come onto the Hamilton straight for the final time, looking at that, because yet only 10 seconds left to go. It's going to be comfortably. I mean, last time when they crossed the line, the margin was 41.5 seconds over the 92 Simpson Motorsport. Sure, they're going to be frustrated at the time they lost in the pits, but for me, at 41.5 seconds, I think that Rob Boston Racing have done enough that they would have been looking on for it already. And look, they're getting excited, and the Rob Boston Racing crew still nervous though.
Yeah, of course. You're always nervous with even coming into these late stages. Anything can still happen. You've still got to have momentum to get over that line, and that won't happen for a number of corners yet. But they're definitely building the excitement down in the pits as we see him going off down the back straight for the final time. What a sight that is.
Yeah, under the bridge they go on the Wellington Straight, and you see there's not even a rooster tail down anymore. Look at the beaming smile there of them. I think they're looking forward to celebrating this one.
Yeah, I think they will as they come round through Luffield for the last time. A well-controlled race, and very controlled from the beginning until the end, really, hasn't it?
It is. They've even had to serve a drive-through as well for a pit stop infringement. But they're coming through for the final time. They're going to come towards the checkered flag. Here we go. The flag now waves and greets the Mercedes of Rob Boston Racing. And it, of course, is Tom Jackson that takes that flag. Wayne Mars celebrating in the pits, I have no doubt. There he is. There's Wayne Mars just in the background behind his crew. And I love the fact that Wayne's made sure that it's the crew that are having the biggest celebration with the work they've done to get these cars through to the completion. We've also seen take the checkered flag the 6th place car, which is the Class E winner, the number 60 EDF Motorsport Cupra Leon Competizione. Do you like the Gaelic flair there? It's not good, is it? But they've taken a class victory. We now see a few exclamation marks coming up on the screen where penalties are being applied for track limits and the like. Across the line there to take the checkered flag in the background is the 2nd place 92 car Simpson Motorsport, pole position, challenges but still coming home in 2nd.
Yeah, it was close trying to think, but it's nice to see the teams out there, isn't it? It is a complete team sport, this, and really the efforts of all those mechanics and team personnel in the pits really make all this happen, and it's great to see them celebrating as well the British Endurance Championship win and aiming for that British Endurance Champion title at the end of the year.
Well, across the line goes our 3rd place 55 car, the ING Sport. That will have been brought home by Ryan Lindsay to a great 3rd position. They're all Class A cars. 4th has already been taken. You saw the jet black menacing 19 Lamborghini Super Trofeo. Race Lab taking Class B honours. We're yet to see take the flag 98, Ewan Hankey in the 98 Porsche. That Race Lab Porsche will take Class D honours as long as it comes through. 6th, number 60, EDF Motorsport winning Class E. C has been won by 144, so Chris Goddard and Bradley Ellis take honours in that class. And the Class F, has that been taken yet? Let me just check on the screen to see. Yeah, number 14 has taken the flag as well to secure Class F. So which one just 98 has now taken the flag.
Has come across the line now. I think it was nearly another lap behind, wasn't it? That's why it's taken him a little while to clear his name through. But we've got the little checkered flag next to his name on the time screen, show that he has been through and taken that the class victory.
Flashing lights in the background a second ago. There was the yellow and black Porsche SG Racing. That was the runner-up in Class C as they make the way. I love that the bridge that goes across to the hotel. So Rob Boston Racing take the victory in their Mercedes from the 92 Simpsons Motorsport car, margin of over 42.25 seconds in the end. 3rd place 55 ING Sports BMW Z4, and 4th place goes to your Class D winner, number 19 Race Lab, this Lamborghini Super Trofeo. Race Lab also in 5th place and Class D honours in the 98 Porsche Cayman GT4. 6th, number 60 EDF Motorsports, that Cupra Leon at TCR taking Class E honours ahead of 21 Venture Motorsport in their Mercedes GT4, 50 T7 Motorsport in the Aston Martin, 44 CTR Alpha Tune and the AF Corsa 23. So as our winner makes his way underneath the podium, I don't believe we're going to get the chance to actually see the podium itself during the course of this, because we've got Caterham Racing coming up next, which Cheesy will be commentating on. But Tom Jackson jumps out and he's absolutely delighted, and David trying to jump in to grab a very quick word as Wayne Mars gives him a big high five. The gloves, the helmet, Tom's eyes absolutely wide open. Well done, Wayne Mars in the background there. Tom Jackson gives it the number 1, and helmet, balaclava's off, and now David Smith's going to grab a word with our winner.
Tom, congratulations. That was a tough fight out there, and the conditions were pretty tough.
Yeah, they weren't bad, but this man over here, get yourself over here. Obviously, this guy did most of the hard work, and to be honest, I think most of it was on in the pit lane. You know, the boys made some quick pit stops, and I think we jumped the guys in the pit stops really. But yeah, tricky conditions. You know, I was when I first went out, there's just standing water everywhere. was kind of like wondering how the hell did this guy do it. But yeah, it got better and better. I think the rain started to stop. You know, the cars were out there taking some of the moisture, standing water out of the way, and you know, I could start to see some things at the end. So, but no, enjoyable race, and fair play to everyone on the the British Endurance Championship grid. You know, the racing standards were really high. I had no incidents, and fair play to everyone. And what a great day we come away with a win.
And as Tom said, you had to do all the hard work.
I always do the hard work. I just give you in the car in good position, that's all.
Well done. Back to you, Chris.
Well, thank you very much, David, and congratulations to our victors there. A fantastic job. Well, they've got to try and carry this one on then if they want to really challenge overall. They're sat fourth in the championship standings when they arrived here, only 3 points behind the leader. They move on to Donington Park, the national circuit in August, and then in October they're back at Donington Park, but this time on the GP circuit. Both of them 2-hour races, and they're going to be hoping to take some confidence from this performance and see whether they can add to that points haul and keep the trophies coming. Absolutely fantastic job by the guys as they now trying to find the podium. Thankfully, they knew their way around the circuit better than they do finding their way up towards the podium. But Wayne and Tom making their way back up there now. The 55 car you see in the background there as well. And there's Sasha Kakad with Hugo Cook. Hugo Cook in the black overall. Sasha Kakad sat there. I've commented on some amazing machinery, Sasha. He really does love to jump in a variety of cars. And they're obviously going to be going up there for that second place. Probably a slightly bittersweet for them. And hopefully they will realise how fantastic job it is in that second place. And especially there was a few that were in the top echelons that haven't quite finished where they would want to.
As a racing driver, you always it's bittersweet, right? You know when you've done a good job, but equally, your reason you're out there is you want to win. Yeah. So sometimes second place can feel painful at the time, but ultimately it's sometimes you just got to know when you've done a good job.
Yeah, you enjoy it afterwards, but hopefully they'll enjoy it now. Let's have a word with them. Down to David.
Well done on the podium. It was a tough fight out there.
Yeah, it was pretty wet in the middle of my stint, and but it's I think we lost quite a lot in the pit stop, and I think we should have won, to be honest. But Sash did a good job securing the second, and yeah, that's it really.
Sasha, you were having to do all the driving in the really bad rain. It was tough, wasn't it?
Yeah, but at least when it's wet, it's properly wet. So that means the wet tyre works. But it's actually when it starts to get changeable that it starts to get really tricky, is where the fastest line is on the circuit, obviously. But yeah, I think we managed it as best we could. Unfortunately, we lost a lot of time in the pit stop, and we had a bit of a gear issue, which was continued to plague us through the race. But yeah, I mean, we're here, we're second. So yeah.
Thanks very much. Back to you, Chris.
Thanks, guys. Congratulations for that second place. You can see that they worked very, very hard on that, but they've got to take delight in the fact that despite all of those challenges, they haven't. They're no lower than second. I mean, it's a brilliant job.
If you come second on a bad day, that's a good day, isn't it? Really,
yeah.
But it takes a little time to reflect on it. But yeah, no, I'm sure they will receive their pots and trophies with pride.
Yeah, I think Sasha Kakad's experience there, you could still see the glint in his eye. He knew what a good job it still was. I think as they are making their way up towards the podium, I can see that we got the next race getting ready in the background there, which I think means you'll be taking that one in a second as well.
Indeed, yeah, we got the caterers ready to go off on their green flag as we're waiting for the podiums.
Okay, so that's... Okay, so wonderful entertainment by the Brit Car Endurance Championship. Cheesy, thank you so much for joining me today, mate. I appreciate it. I know you've got some more work to do now, but it's been great to have the driver's eye view, and thank you for that.
My pleasure.
And thank you to David Smith, that's been down in the pit lane doing all of that, and of course the whole media crew that have brought this production together. I'm now making my way to the Brit Car Endurance marquee, because I'm going to present them with all of their trophies for all their classes, and my word, they've earned that today with these conditions. So from myself, Chris Dawes, it's been a pleasure to join you for this. and I look forward to catching up with you all again very soon.